The right to offend is not some pesky little part of freedom of speech that we have to put up with. It is the heart and soul and lungs of freedom of speech. It is the coursing lifeblood of human progress. It is the instigator of liberty and modernity and science and understanding. What a laughing stock today's student leaders are, that they can so casually dismiss the right to be offensive without realizing that their lovely, enlightened lives are the gift of individuals who gave offense. Offensiveness is not just something we have to begrudgingly accept. Offensiveness is the motor of human progress.
Nope, we're live. So
fuck it, we'll do it live.
Welcome to the show, folks. And welcome to launch day for the Dogs of War. It's been a long time in the making. So happy to have everyone aboard and chat.
And you don't need to be hobbled.
We have a jam-packed panel tonight. Yes, that's true too. No hobbling. So that's good.
Oh no, he finished so far ahead of schedule. Well, I was surprised. I was figuring I was gonna have to prod him along. That's where the hobbling bit came from. I told him I'm his biggest fan and I need the next chapter, so I'm gonna have to kidnap him and force him to write it. And then it just spiraled into, a whole thing about misery. And I've been saying, all right, Sam, you better get on that sequel. We're going to have to do a Hoblin. But then he was like, oh, yeah, I got a publishing date. And I was like, oh, I didn't have to even really remind him. He was, he was inspired for this one, I think. That's why I'm excited to get my hands on it.
Yeah, it was great to get this out and to see this cover, in person, without all the pre-publication markings is
it's a really nice cover, Sam.
Right.
I think it's one of the best I've done. So, but we have a jam-packed panel tonight. We've not only got Max and Morpheus, but we've got Shmuley returning from
well, I wrote some Substack articles, and I'm back in the United States again. Things are going pretty well for me. Good to be on the show. That's excited. High energy as always.
Very much. And also joining us tonight is fellow author and retired NYPD veteran Andrew G. Nelson, who just popped off the screen as Sam, I mentioned.
Sam, I know that it's kind of it's your word, but do you really want to call him that? I know, well, you called him the R word.
Retired?
Well, you
said that he was retarded.
No, I said retired.
Retired.
Okay.
A very different thing.
I was about to say, like, I'm just not sure we should be throwing that around casually.
Well, I mean, we do, but yeah, it's a big difference between the two, I think.
You know, like I said, I mean, maybe it's not my room to speak.
Well, no, but also it's like not mutually exclusive if you think about it. Because you could totally be retired and retarded.
I'm just saying he's a guest. I don't know if we should.
Yeah. But no, he's retired. No, they're
yeah, and he's done a lot too, and he has a great series of books himself, which
he's one of
pulling up.
He's one of the authors, Sam, that I actually like followed and have read before you started this venture of yours that we've interacted with. To be honest with you,
I'm back.
Yeah, we were actually just welcome to the show, sir. I was just mentioning that I purchased one of your books today. And then Max was just saying that he's followed you, I think, before before I even started this writing venture. So
I forget even where. I think at a library I picked up one. It might have been a library and it was just on display. But yeah, I was saying to him before he even started writing books, I had known who you were. A lot of authors he's had on, I have to catch up on their work, you know.
Well, thank you.
So, anyway, though, sir, would you mind giving us a little bit of your background? I know that you were in the NYPD for a long time, and now you've transitioned into becoming an author. So, the floor is yours, just to share your story.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was a long time, 20 years. I started back in 1985 and retired in 2005. And during that time, I worked, I guess the main thing is I worked in the intelligence division and did protection for 5 years there. So after I retired, I ended up taking up writing because over the course of 20 years, you get a lot of stories to tell.
I imagine, like, I often bring up on the show, I've done like, low-level security for like musicians and stuff like that, I'm thinking intelligence, police, New York City, you probably met some interesting people along the journey to inspire a story or two.
Well, yeah. One of my first assignments, I had done protection for a while, but back in 94, we were doing the advance for Pope John Paul's visit to New York City, which actually got canceled. And then we did it in 1995 when he came. So right. That was pretty interesting.
I met the John Paul II on that trip as a kid when he came by this area. I'm from Massachusetts, obviously, if you couldn't tell by my accent. Yeah, I remember that fondly, and that sounds like a pretty intense job, to be honest with you. He's the Pope that got shot.
Yeah. So in light of recent events, I come at it from a completely different point of view, because I've done that. I've done the whole advance work on it. I know what goes into actually going to a venue and doing the security workup on it and figure out where you're going to need to put people. And when I saw the shooting on Saturday, it was like, okay, this is a colossal screw up.
Yeah, and so I'm just some big guy they send to throw drunks out kind of guy, basically, right? But even I know, like, if the VIP takes a shot at him, that is considered a failure of the entire security staff. I know that, and I'm just some grunt guy. I don't understand why people don't, because I did say that on Twitter, and I guess, oh my God, who was it that's a former Secret Service agent kind of like chastised me, but I wasn't saying it even as a it is a failure. Your job was to have that not happen, and like That's true at every level of security. That's literally the name of the game.
Sure. And I think
now that doesn't mean it's anybody's fault sometimes, or that you could have done anything different. But I said, like, the biggest thing in this case, in my personal opinion, is transparency of everything that happened that day, from the government in particular. Because I said that's where a lot of the distrust of law enforcement is coming from, is the lack of transparency on something so huge. And then seeing, I've even said, like, the things people are pointing out in the pictures, right? You don't know what it's like to be in that situation. You don't know all the context. You might see a picture that looks, funny, but there might be more going on. And I just think people rush to judgments and to contrive their own theories of events and things. And I'm trying to kind of take a wait and see approach.
Well, the problem is we live in a news cycle now that's driven by everybody trying to be the first one to report something, whether it's correct or not. They just want to get it out there. So if it does turn out to be correct, they're the ones that broke it. And the problem is once you say something, you can't go back and take it back.
Right.
So all of these people, and I saw, in the days that were following it, all of these screenshots. And that's great. Screenshot is wonderful, but it's a fraction of a second in an event. And unless you look at it in its entire context, well, you can pick apart anything with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's
I'm sorry, Sam. I just had a question that was relevant real quick. Did you see any of the Senate hearings with Ms. Cheadle?
I saw part of it. There comes a point where you realize, and I've been in this game for a long time, you're not going to get answers.
Right. You're going to get non-answers specifically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what we were talking about, prior to going live, you mentioned Watergate, and the old saying from Watergate is the cover-up is worse than the crime.
Yeah.
And so what we're looking at is a matter of everybody is trying to protect themselves. Mm-hmm. And so, like I said, when we were doing in 94, when we were doing the papal advance, it was at Shea Stadium. And I'll never forget, me, my Secret Service counterpart, and a couple of other agents walked out into the field, and he was the lead person on it. And so we're out in center field, and I'm looking around because I grew up as a Mets fan.
Right.
And I'm standing out there, and we're looking at it, and I'm having my childhood flashbacks. Here I am in center field at Shea Stadium, and he said, "Look around," and he says, "Now I'm seeing it from a completely different light. I'm seeing all the stands. I'm seeing the catwalk on top. I'm seeing
the angles, the
sky boxes, all of the different areas." And he said, "We're responsible for this, and we're going to make sure that we do everything in our power so that we don't find ourselves sitting in Congress with our right hand raised and trying to explain how we screwed up."
Right.
And that put everything in perspective. You look at everything from a completely different point of view when you realize the gravity of the situation.
And my gut instinct here doesn't lean towards malice on anyone's part. It leans towards not even necessarily incompetence in a lot of cases. But I get the general feeling from everything I'm seeing that there was a lot of complacency, which in security is like the constant devil you're fighting, right? Because complacency is just a natural way of doing your job. Eventually, you do the same thing enough, right? And you're like, of course the cameras are fine today, right? Why should I go double check camera 2? It's been fine every day. So I don't double check camera 2 today. And because I don't double check camera 2, something happens in that corner of the area and we don't have footage of it, etc. Like these things happen at every level of it, but like you're not really allowed to have that happen with such high stakes. Because I'm talking about protecting just random patrons at an event, right? And we don't allow that level of complacency for that. So for there to be this level of complacency at the presidential level is a scary thing for a lot of people, you know?
I think the thing that bothers me more than anything else is you've got to recognize the threat level of the protectee that you're guarding. I mean, now, when I was back in New York, we had a very diverse field of protectees. Some of them had no threat level. They were just a VIP, and there really wasn't anything aimed at them. But when you start talking about like world leaders, whether it's the president, whether it's the Pope, whether it's the Prime Minister of Israel, there are certain ones that are going to have this inherent threat level, and you cannot be complacent with it.
And this particular one has been shot at prior to this. I think a lot of people forget that, but there were shots fired at a Trump rally a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Not nearly as severe as this, and that's maybe why the public has brushed it aside. But me personally, I thought that's very severe, right? That's because I don't like the idea of political violence being how we settle things. It's literally the opposite of like civilization. But it just seemed to me as like that was bad enough. You would figure that would up this, and then to hear, I heard reports and saw people saying that Trump's team had been denied extra Secret Service protection a month or so prior. But to see confirmation of that as 100% fact, I want to know who made that decision specifically and why. And I think that they should be fired for it.
Well, that's the thing. I understand the institutional desire to protect the information, and you find that it doesn't matter what line of work you're in. When a agency engages in bad PR, they're looking to protect themselves. So I do understand that, but it's not an excuse. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to make the decision of whether you're going to be honest with the American people. And so we have the information. So when an advance goes out there and they look at a site, they're going to take everything into consideration. So you go out there, you know, you have a stage, you know, you have certain buildings and whatnot, and you're going to assign people to that. And so we know that there were people that were assigned to that AGR building. Now, whether it was in the inner perimeter or the outer perimeter, I hate Monday morning quarterbacking things. So I can only speak if I was actually going out to the site and this is what I was facing. If I have a building that's 150 yards away from my stage,
the direct line of sight,
be a threat.
Yeah. Direct, unblocked line of sight.
Yeah.
Right? 150 yards, which is like shooter distance.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know what's going through the advanced person's mind. If it was me, I would have made sure that that was secure, and that would have been a place, considering the proximity to the stage and the fact that there was a roof, there should have been, at least in my opinion, and again, unfortunately, I'm 30 years removed from the protection business. But if that was my site, I would have made sure that there was somebody on that roof securing it, because that's something you just can't take for granted.
May I ask you something? The head of the Secret Service, I mean, her response was not, we want to maintain level of secrecy, congressman, congresswoman, I'll talk to you in private about this. She seemed completely evasive, and unwilling to speak on anything. Do you think that speaks to trying to essentially cover up for her boss to take the fault of?
She is the boss.
Is there not?
I believe Mayorkas is above her.
Yeah, that's Mayorkas.
Fair enough.
Well, you get the Secret Service had previously been under Treasury, so there's always going to be that level down. Personally, I don't think the Secret Service should have ever been moved under DHS. That was that whole change that occurred after 9/11. They wanted to prevent that stovepipe sharing of intelligence, because that's another thing in the intelligence game. Basically, no one wants to give up that portfolio.
Right. Which it didn't fix that problem. They still don't like to give it up to each other.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't think Secret Service should have been moved out from underneath Treasury, but it was. There are going to be certain elements of protection that you don't want to disclose in an open setting like that.
Right.
So on certain things, I can understand there is a need for it. But when you do an advance and you get to a site, whether it's going to be the inner perimeter or the outer perimeter, if it's the inner perimeter and you're the Secret Service, you're going to assign all of your people that are going to be there. You know exactly who they are.
Right.
If you have a location in the outer perimeter, and we can argue about whether or not the AGR building should have been, it was, then the local authorities are going to be responsible for signing that. But you have both an advance from Secret Service and advance from the locals. They should know exactly who and why was there. Now, if they don't want to share it in an open setting, they could do that in a closed setting.
I think when people use the term local law enforcement, they kind of get a picture of like Hicks from the Sticks, but that's usually not the case, right? It's usually people that are actually specialized in security that they're going to put on such a high profile situation.
No,
but no,
not to correct you. The interesting thing about the
I'm trying to give the benefit of a doubt. I'm usually the biggest critic of cops in the world.
Max needs the most correcting, sir.
That's true.
No, I'll be the first one to admit the situation in security is different depending on where you go. So, for example, if the Secret Service is going to a location out in the Midwest, they're going to have to bring in a lot more agents because the locals probably have zero experience in doing protection. NYPD was a completely different animal because we had an intelligence division for several decades. We've worked hand in hand with both the Secret Service, State Department, diplomatic security, Capitol Police, and foreign security agencies that come in. So,
to be fair, being from where I'm from, I got Boston and Providence, and though smaller scale, they're similar in that way. So that's kind of why I said it's not always like that, because I've seen VIPs much less high profile than a presidential nominee and former president that have been rolled out a lot of like high profile like Providence police detectives and things just to make sure they were safe.
Right.
So yeah, you're right. It probably does, because this was a field in the middle of nowhere, essentially.
Right, and so it depends on, you're bringing in state police, you're bringing in the local sheriff, you're bringing in local police departments. So if the Secret Service has to go out there and bring 100 agents to an event, if they went to a place like New York City, they'd only have to bring in 50 because the intelligence division could supplement the rest of them. So that's why when you're dealing with a rural event like that, you need to really be on your game, because the locals are not going to be as well versed in protection as you would like them to be.
How long, if I may ask, because I've been getting this question a lot from people, who tend to armchair quarterback. And I'm hearing a lot from the so-called online experts who are saying, well, they needed to do this, type of advanced scouting and all that. But like, my question is, how long does it take, or how long should it take for an advanced team to effectively scout out an area, because the thing that I'm hearing, and I don't know if this is true or not, but the thing that's kind of online from all these armchair quarterbacks as well, they half-assed, the advanced scouting, or they did it too quickly, or
it's really going to depend on the venue.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're doing, say, a stadium, it's going to take you several months, because as an advanced person, you need to know that location like the back of your hand. So if you're doing, like I did the Pope for both Shea Stadium and Aqueduct Racetrack, I did Clinton for the Jackie Robinson Memorial at Shea Stadium. And so you need to know that place like the back of your hand, because
every
when you're
trash barrel,
there are so many walkways and access points and everything else.
Maintenance tunnels and all this stuff.
Exactly. For a venue like Butler, it really isn't that big of a deal, because you're dealing with an open air environment. So you have your inner perimeter, you know where your post stand is going to be within that. Then you have the protective detail that's going to be on board, and those are the ones that you saw rush the stage.
Right.
You've got CAT, you've got counter sniper, you have different elements with that, but they all know exactly what they're doing. They're going to come out, they're going to look at the high ground, they're going to be in proximity to the stage. So your post standers are going to be from different field offices that come in. And then, like I said, you're going to have the advance from the local police that's going to go through, and they're going to know where they're supposed to be. So something like that won't take very long. Not like an inside venue like a stadium or a big event like that.
Does it seem likely that a communication breakdown happened here? Because I think by now everybody has seen the famous, I guess, video of all the bystanders pointing to the guy on the roof before the shooting took place. And clearly officers in there are made aware of the situation and just kind of stand there. And a lot of people are really concerned about that, obviously. Now, obviously, a lot of people come to the conclusion that they're doing that maliciously, but I'm not so certain that's the case. It does feel like because I've been in a situation where you're doing security and there's a bunch of people yelling to something to try to get your attention.
Sure.
And then it's bullshit that you don't need to worry about. And so you sometimes you just stand your post and can totally relate to that. But a lot of people aren't going to see it that way. And they definitely come to some conclusions about it. But it does seem like there was a communication to at least some of the team, because it is all of a team, that this person was posted there. And that's why I ask about the communication breakdown. Sorry, it's a ramble, but there's a lot.
No, there was definitely a communication breakdown. Whether it was intentional, whether it was malicious, that's something that has to come out if they release the audio on it. Basically what you're talking about is Secret Service has their own communication system.
Right.
Locals have their own communication.
That's kind of what I think the breakdown would have been, right?
But there should have been a centralized command post that was actually had a local and a Secret Service representative together, so that they could relay the information back and forth.
A radio room. We used to have a radio room for like local bands, dude. Like, are you kidding me? We have so many guys on scene, especially like the reason for that, honestly, is because it's hardcore bands and these guys are going to fight, right? Yeah. And so, we got a radio room because if a guy breaks his jaw, we got to get an ambulance over here. We need the police scanner on. We need to talk to each other. Of course. Right, a radio room for the lowest level security event, and I'm just wondering where the hell the radio room was at.
That's a good question. Like I said, there's always a point of contact between the locals and the Secret Service for the relaying of information. You don't want to have a local spot something and not be able to communicate to the Secret Service. So there is that
And that's the charitable version that people are seeing in that video, right? The charitable version is that there was a lapse in communication, because how could the officers not have reacted? He clearly had a rifle. They even said he's got a gun. Maybe in the moment, this is another form of communication. Again, the crowd's yelling at you. You have a job to do. I've been there. They're saying he's got a gun, and you look up and you're just like, oh yeah, that's probably one of the snipers. A mistake that could have been deadly? Absolutely. A mistake that could have easily been made by anybody? Yes. Especially in the heat of the moment, because he's got a crowd in front of him he's looking at. He's got a crowd behind him he's trying to be mindful of, etc. And you just kind of overlook simple things.
And again, you can have that breakdown. Unfortunately, these things do happen. Would like to say that they don't, but they do. I think my initial, when I was looking at it, knowing that supposedly there was a local sniper team, that possibly there was confusion on the part of Secret Service counter snipers, not knowing.
Right.
I'd kind of like throw that out there because, again, I wasn't there. I've been out of this game a long time, and I don't like the Monday morning quarterback. But at some point, somebody should have gone to investigate that. And again, one of the things that I can't get past is the fact that roof was not secured. And whether you say there's, well, they were up on the second floor, that's fine, but that's not securing the roof.
Right.
And if it was my site, I would have made sure that there was somebody up there. And,
from the reverse point of view, a roof that could be in like the ideal sniper perch for a potential, it's 150 yards, which most people could hit a target at. Yeah. And it's miraculous that he didn't hit his target, although he did take a life and perhaps ruined several others in a way. And many more because he took the life he took. So it's not exactly a harmless miss, but it's miraculous he didn't hit his target, because that's like, if you can't hit the 150-yard target, you're not exactly a shooter.
No, and I think there was a tremendous, whether you want to call it, divine intervention or just extreme luck, whatever happened.
I lean towards the former myself because it's so wild.
Yeah. Same here.
I'm sorry if this is a dumb question, but go ahead. But how often is it that the security is shorter than the protectee?
Well, unfortunately, we live in a day and age where you're going to find that.
Right.
You can call it DEI, you can call it a lot of different things, but you find that throughout law enforcement. And so I really can't blast them for that.
You'd be hard-pressed to find it where all of them are shorter, but you'll definitely find some of them, right? And that's in the olden days, that's why a guy like me got a job, right? Because I'm 6'5". That's it. That's all I needed to do to throw some heads around,
Well, I mean, back in the day, you had to be over 6 foot to get on NYPD. And that has changed over the years. Whether we agree with it or not, that's just the nature of the beast now. And from people are making this out like, well, they weren't all Secret Service. They were from Homeland Security investigations. That actually isn't unusual, because even when Secret Service was under Treasury, if it was a big enough event, they would bring in what were called other Treasury agents, whether they were from ATF, whether they were Customs.
If you need bodies, you need bodies.
You need bodies.
That's why I wanted to
every agency is suffering from a loss of personnel. Secret Service is no different. So, when you're having, especially during, the election season, where you're having people go into all these different rallies, that will chew away at numbers very quickly. So if you have to do, and we both know that Trump does a tremendous amount of rallies. He's going all over the place. So you're constantly shuffling people in because you also want to keep them fresh.
Mm-hmm.
So you run into that problem. So
yeah, you run into the problem of like 30-hour shifts and 3 hours of sleep. Of course.
The last year that I was in the intelligence division, I was working the UN General Assembly, and I was doing advanced work for 3 protectees at the same time. It was Clinton, Netanyahu, and Arafat. I don't think I slept for maybe like an hour a night.
What a combo!
Yeah, that was
for in any way. Oh man,
yeah, no high threat level there.
Yeah, the threat to each other.
Well, the surprising thing, that's one of the interesting things you brought that up, because I tell people the surprising thing to me is that I've seen all of them behind closed doors, and they're completely different than what you see when they get in front of the camera. And I've always said it's a big club. You're not invited.
Of course.
They get along, they laugh, they joke, they drink, and they're all having a grand time. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's pro wrestling, only with much higher stakes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I would, if we could, real quick, Sam. We're a little behind on chat, and we even got a Rumble rant. So I wanted to point out, MAGA News Network said, "This guy is NYPD. Then why did I see him in Buffalo, New York, in 1999? Yeah, because he could never leave the city.
Never been to Buffalo.
There you go. He got you. For $1, he also said, the worst are the wheelchair quarterbacks.
Hey, that's why I have the expert. That's why I have the experts on.
No, he's right. From a defensive standpoint, I can't tackle him.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Just tackle the crippled guy. It's just. First of all, you're going to stay in the chair, most likely. You're just going to fall, get hurt. I'm going to be an asshole for doing it. No, you just win.
No, that is true.
Yeah, you want the wheelchair quarterback. Now that I think about it, he's
we'd be the DEI quarterback.
Or because you could replace it with a woman. The thing is if you it's not true DEI, because if you replace it with a black guy, there's a lot of those.
What is your opinion on women in law enforcement and women in the Secret Service?
I've said this before. Yeah. I've worked with women that I would gladly go through a door with. And I've worked with men that I would run the other way because it's going to be a complete disaster. It depends on the person. If you watch the video of the Trump shooting, that is, the protective detail was there 2 seconds. Who the other agents were, the females that were there, were they Secret Service, were they Homeland Security? I don't know. But obviously, no one knows what they're going to do until those shots go off. And but the protective detail did an amazing job. As far as the height, it's unfortunate. If you knew you were going into something where there was going to be a shooting, and again, we always have to assume that something bad is going to happen. But you would get, 6'5" guys that completely smother them. I had a little bit of a problem with how long it took them to get him from the stage to the Suburban. There are some protective measures around there that I go, okay, I know about those protective measures, but at the same time, from the time they got him there to the time the Suburban left, seemed like an awful long time. Again, that's coming from my opinion. I would have thought that, we would have gotten him off a lot quicker. Then he wouldn't have had the, photo op with the, raised fist.
And that's what I meant about complacency too, right? Like you said, if you thought you were going into a shooting situation, ideally you'd want big meat shields, essentially, to smother him. And like you said, they're especially the Secret Service, right? Maybe even more so than your position, which is like, I'm sure a 0% failure rate was expected of you too.
Yeah,
it's a really serious thing to be complacent about when they should be assuming. But I get it. There's a Trump rally every week. He does this all the time. We have 4 of these a week, and it's always the same crap. And maybe you're not even interested. Maybe you're not like a Trump guy, so you're just like, blah, 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 shut the fuck up. It's possible.
Like I said, the protective detail got there within 2 seconds. They were on top of him.
Mm-hmm.
Cat got there a second or two right after him. So that part of it actually worked exactly the way it was supposed to. Now, again, like I said, getting him to the car seemed like a little bit slow to me. It is what it is,
Excluding when he came back he's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I've seen some argument of whether they should have not let him say wait a minute, but whatever. That's what he wanted to do in the moment.
And it is Trump, so you've got to take that into consideration too.
Right, he was ready to go back to the microphone, you could tell, and they're like, nah, we ain't having that.
Yeah, your shot, we're taking you out of here. Yeah,
right. Yeah,
but I think every element of this needs to be looked at, and we need transparency. And whether it hurts the agency or not, it's okay. Sometimes you got to open up the windows, you got to let the fresh air and the sunshine in, and say, hey, listen, this is where we did right, this is where we screwed up. Because unless you have a director that's willing to, air the laundry, then what happens is you get all the conspiracy theories. And they're going to hurt you even more. So,
and then you can never squash them, ever.
No, because and then you're having to respond to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I mean,
and the people that are into it will never believe you. And I find that the funniest thing is they end up doing stuff like completely banning Alex Jones all on the same day. Well, whatever you think about Alex Jones, to people that were sort of on the fence, that's actually kind of convincing that he's right. Yeah. Because you're trying to silence him. Why? If everything he says is just stupid nonsense rambling of a madman, you just let him ramble.
Exactly. I mean, freedom of speech is freedom of speech.
Yeah. That's, and that's kind of our whole, that's why it's right to offend media, right? Like making a point, it's not just because free speech isn't just what's popular. In fact, what's popular doesn't need protecting. Nobody needs to protect to say, I love puppies. Pretty much everybody, unless they get a dog allergy, then maybe they're not so fond of puppies. But pretty much universally, nobody would be offended by that, and so nobody needs to protect it from anybody.
Exactly.
And the Supreme Court in our country has upheld this time and again, sometimes for people that you would detest, right? Like the Klan. It's how it is, and I do think I'm a firm believer in that. In the public space of America, everybody is allowed to talk. I feel like we've gone away from the older mentality of just change the channel, because now we have the internet and it's not a channel and it's constant and it's ever evolving. Like you mentioned, the news cycle, this 24-hour, monster that takes over people's lives. I went camping earlier this month before all the stuff went crazy, and had just a blast with no internet at all and just my music in the woods with my family. It's so much better when I turn that crap off. And I've been reading
from your phone and the internet. It's all of a sudden you realize that there's a life outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's also like for me with also like writing books. Like I do base some of my plots off of current events, but I try not to lean into them too heavily because things change, moment to moment. But like I find, yeah, that like even writing is a good escape from, just the draw of the news cycle.
Well, because people get so wrapped up in it that they actually think it affects their day to day, like it does in the meta. Okay. The last election led to a lot of the things that are going on now, for sure, right? But even this, we're talking about this assassination. It did attempt. Did it stop, you from going to the store the next day? No. And I think people, it's like, be aware of the news, but man, don't invest your whole life into it because it will consume. I see people just like go crazy, like literally their mental health deteriorating. It was a really, really bad after 9/11. I watched like every adult I knew became a drooling, crying TV zombie for like months.
Yeah. Well, and you can take this all the way back to the first Gulf War and CNN's coverage of it. And they found that they created an audience that was so hungry to know what was going on that it created an entire business model. So you went from providing, and the problem is, when the war is now over, what do? You have to fill that time slot. You have the audience. Now you have to fill it. And so if you don't have the news for it, then you have opinion and you fill the time slots with opinion. The only problem is it's opinion. It's not news. So we've actually gotten away from, if you look at the amount of actual traditional journalistic news,
right,
it's a fraction of the time. Everything else is opinion, and everybody has an opinion, right or wrong. But people start to gravitate towards it. It fits their narrative.
Heads have become the news,
and
right?
And just to add to that point, I mean, the big thing, the big value that journalism gives us is investigative journalists. Right. We lack enough. I mean, you have some smaller guys, Project Veritas and James O'Keefe now doing his own thing, but for the most part, like this is a dying breed. It's all independent. It's all on the internet, which is good that it exists. But that's really a distinction I think not a lot of people make because, Walter Cronkite or whatever, it's like, yeah, he was doing his thing, but he wasn't really doing a whole lot of investigative journalism, right? There's really not all that much difference.
He was reading the headlines of the day and
maybe
the thing about Cronkite
is the news.
I love that they act like Cronkite didn't have opinion. It's like, I mean, just go watch some of his stuff. Of course he had an opinion, but comparatively, and I think that's what's lost, is like for the time, he was opinionated. But today, he would be the most straight-laced news guy there is, right? But he was obviously subtly...
I just think it's very pernicious. The real pernicious thing to me is like, yes, the oversaturation of opinion rather than simply telling facts, so to speak, but also just the lack of investigative journalism. I mean, you see these people on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, listen to what they're saying. They're very rarely running a spot where we did an investigative journalist thing and we found this and that.
The only place you find that is like local news will run about like a crooked carpenter or something.
Exactly.
And to a certain extent, that's why you have a lot of these, for lack of a better word, cover-ups with the government, because they know they have a friendly media that's not going to ask the hard questions. And so, where you had people like, say, going back to Watergate, where they were tenacious. They followed up on it. They sunk their teeth into it. That doesn't exist anymore. So when you get, government officials that'll come out here and tell a story but not give any information, they know.
One could argue it exists, but it's used in one direction only as a tool. That's what I suggest has been happening with Trump.
Issue.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so if it's going to be wet, my argument from the moment that they impeached him with the halfway stuff was that we should just impeach every Democrat. Every single one just has to get impeached, whether they lose or not. It doesn't matter, because it was important to the nation that we did this and da-da-da-da-da. And I am pretty sure that every freaking president who will be president forever, if you investigate hard enough, you'll find the crime, because that's how it works.
Well, I mean, was it Stalin that said, "Show me the man, I'll show you the crime"?
Yeah. And you could do that without Soviet style anything, because you just investigate one person long enough, you'll figure something.
One thing I do find interesting, and I actually wanted to ask about this, is I have relatives who live in New York, and before and even after 9/11, they all spoke very highly of Mayor Giuliani, and everyone, as far as I can tell, did. Yet once he got involved with Trump's campaign, pretty much as far as I can tell, pretty much everything, like, nobody mentions anymore that he helped to take down organized crime, which I'm sure for
that
you
he was
guys,
America's mayor after 9/11. Let's just forget all that. Yeah, Rudy's like, I don't know. I'm one of those guys that will defend the hell out of Rudy, right? I think he was, as a guy who hates New York from Massachusetts, I think he was a great mayor. And, he's a hell of a personality. You say what you want
somebody
about
who worked for him. I will say this.
Yeah.
As a boss, I hated him.
Fair.
As a mayor, he was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
I could totally see why you would say that.
Yeah, I can see that.
And not taking away anything as a mayor, because honestly, it used to be an old saying: if Jesus Christ was a Republican, he couldn't get elected in New York. And it was true. And it legitimately, because I was there prior to Giuliani coming in, and it legitimately got so bad that people finally said, enough is enough. We're gonna try. And I saw the turnaround. I lived through it. And he was smart enough to understand that if you don't address these smaller crimes, then you're going to have problems. And so I went from seeing an area like Times Square and just west of it, which was basically a no man's land, to seeing,
particularly talking about prostitution, street drug dealing, and stuff like that. Yeah.
And then you've got, Mickey Mouse and the Lion King. And, you've got families walking around, and it was like, a part of you goes like, I kind of miss the old days a little bit, but, and now I'm watching it again in New York, and it's going back to the same way that it was. But Giuliani was a fantastic mayor. But the problem is that he was vilified, Trump was vilified. But if you lived in New York, and this is the crazy thing, if you lived in New York, you knew exactly who Trump was, because there wasn't a day in the papers that Trump wasn't in there. Trump was always doing something.
Yeah, they've been talking about him since before he was relevant. They made him relevant.
And again, doing production, you're going to these different events and everything, and you see Trump there, and everybody loved Trump. No one said anything bad about Trump. That makes
it a higher profile event just by having him there.
Yeah. And so you had Democrats and Republicans. Everyone was courting him.
Mm-hmm.
And
he criticized both in equal measure, too, especially in his books.
Yeah.
This is the thing. It's like I was a guy that was real hype when he announced because I was familiar. I was like a fan since I was a kid. I read Art of the Deal, Art of the Comeback, and then I just kept reading. If he put out books every couple years, I was involved with the Reform Party when I was a kid, thinking we were going to change the world. And Trump, realized that ship was not worth sailing, but which is smart on his part. And then when he eventually said he was going to run, I was like, oh, he's a very qualified person for this job because I've read all this policy stuff he's discussed. He talks about all his business deal. Man, to deal with the red tape in New York City alone requires like a fucking PhD and like a silver tongue and money.
Now, I'll be the first one to say, do I have issues with Trump? Sure, there are certain things that I disagree with, but I've disagreed with every president going all the way back. And so you're always going to have those issues. There's going to be pros and cons with everybody. The thing that I saw with Trump was the fact that he wasn't a politician. He engaged in politics as part of his career in dealing with governments, but he brought in a non-politician acumen. And I think that's what this country needed and still needs. I mean, you look at some of these people. Look at Mitch McConnell. Look at Chuck Schumer. Look at Jerry Nadler, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden. We're talking about people that have been, decades. I mean,
well, he went from, and this is like not a secret since he writes it in his books. He went from dealing with mobsters of the old school street variety to go dealing with the gangsters up in DC.
Yeah.
And if there's anybody fit to deal with some gangsters, it's Trump.
Yeah.
Especially now. He's gangster as a motherfucker now.
Oh, yeah. 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 I mean, he's got all the street cred at this point.
Yeah. I was like, I honestly was like Kid Rock, Hulk Hogan, Dana White. There were rumors of 50 Cent. I was like, did I write the RNC lineup? Is it just me that wrote it?
Yeah, I mean, you've got Trump's nephew on Twitter is out there, and he put out a video with
Fagajo.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm looking.
Shout out, that's my boy. I love Fagajo.
Yeah, it was a great video.
By the way, he's not actually Trump's nephew.
I know. I just couldn't remember his name. I'm getting older.
No, people started calling him that. They started calling him that, and he's just like, all right, cool. That's cool. Like, why would... It was lefties started calling him that. They're like, oh, you suck up to him because he gives you money or something. And he's like, bro. Like, the thing about Fagajo is he's been an underground artist for a long fucking time. And, like, if you want to give credit to anybody for putting him on, it's actually Vanilla Ice, not Donald Trump. He just jumped on making, like, Trump-centric music, and it really worked for him. But he's been around a while. I'm sorry, I have to defend my homie.
And you got Tom McDonald too. Who's another great rapper. And Trump resonates.
Playboy the Beast. That's a friend of mine from way back. That's Billy, and he was in my opinion wrongfully prosecuted for J6, and he served 6 months because he had a prior for trespassing. He had a prior felony from when he was way younger. But like the thing about Playboy is he had a religious awakening, I would say. He was a gangbanger, right? He's a Hispanic guy. He's got tattoos. He's from the streets. And he channeled his anger into MMA fighting and music and found Jesus, and like he's a Proud Boy, I guess, and started making Trump music. Now I'm seeing my boy from back in the day on the Billboard chart. A year ago, he was in prison.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel, good about things in a lot of ways, but you see stuff like what happened with Trump there that we've been talking about, and it's hard to...
Well,
it's an emotional roller coaster is what it is.
As far as, having problems with him and not, I mean, I was, 18 years old when Trump ran the first time? And I was still palling around with Max and whatnot.
I'm old.
Yeah. Well, and Max came in and is like, well, then did you read his platform? And I'm like, No, I haven't. So I go through it and I saw that it was holistic and it was very much focused on the economy, and anywhere where I would say, well, that's not going to be good for the economy. Oh, here's how he's kind of making up for it. So I saw that he was a systematic thinker, and seeing the sort of conservative establishment attack him, and even people personally in my life in the primary attacking him and whatnot, really made me kind of resonate that like all of my enemies hate him. And if all of my enemies hate him, then I need to be behind him, right? Just keep pushing. Last time around, I said, you know, it's poetic if Joe gets in there. I think he is a perfect figurehead for this sort of like corrupt oligarchic system, right? Like the king who's not aware of where he's at. That's beautiful for a system that's just.
We literally had a conversation on the day he got inaugurated about this, and where we were both like, yeah, this is, you know, in a weird way, this might be better for our cause. Because, like, I don't know, there's Trump, the man, and then there's what's behind people, like, getting behind him. And it's a lot of the populist everyman stuff that he espouses that they think he's just pandering. And even if it, like the left will say, oh, he just panders to stupid people. And even if that's the case, you have to understand that us stupid people are going to exist even if he had died in that field that day. Right. Well, and we would be pissed if that was the case, actually.
The fact of the matter is that he's always, and I hate to be too crass, but like I've said before, I mean, if you make the guy a martyr, then you've done more to help his cause than anything in the world. Right. So go right ahead.
They've done everything but actually do that at this point. So.
But the fact of the matter is that he sort of baits them into hazard. And I'm saying them in a vague sense, but I mean lots of this kind of decentralized system, these decentralized groups of people. He baits them into acting crazy, and then people see that they're crazy and sort of organically form as a coalition against them. I mean, evidence of this is that the sort of embedded deep GOP big business sentiment is kind of gone. There really isn't a whole lot of Mitt Romney, Bain Capital conservatives that exist.
Corpo conservatism, and I'm very happy about this, seems to be basically dead.
But what's interesting is over the last, 4-6 years, you've seen a group of tech entrepreneurs, and you've seen them move more into line. And so what you see now with J.D. Vance, and you look at the GOP platform, it no longer condemns gay marriage, and it no longer contains language that's so hard on abortion. That is not an accident. That is the direct doing of Donald Trump, who is now receiving funding from Elon Musk. And J.D. Vance has been bankrolled and supported by Peter Thiel going back. This faction to which I'm the most aligned has now sort of ceded power away from the old.
And that's because we came up in the same soup as them.
Yes.
You know, and have a lot of the same like needs and wants. And that's why it's a more populist feel to it.
But when you ask me, and I was just answering, I want to wrap it up.
Go ahead.
My thought. So when you ask me, like, what do I think about Donald Trump all in all, and kind of from the very beginning of my kind of support of him to now, he has baited all of my enemies into acting a fool, destroyed their credibility with a large group of people, and now has essentially bootloaded my ideology into political power.
Yeah, we run the mainstream GOP now. Look at me.
For me,
the Republicans now.
For me, I guess this is very telling. I mean, I live in Florida, but like I said, I have lots of family in New York, and the amount of New Yorkers the last time I was there who looked to their left and looked to their right, and then whispered to me that they were voting for Trump was actually pretty shocking to me.
That's the big lie, is that the Northeast is like super duper against Trump and liberal. Like, Yeah, the big cities are, but like out here, I'm telling you, Sam, where I live, I am not in Boston. I'm not in Providence. Yeah. Therefore, everything is just Trump signs. You wouldn't find a Biden sign if you fucking paid. Well, you might see the occasional BLM sign, but those people would not dare to have put up a Biden sign. Are they crazy?
Even in the Bronx, like I've noticed that because I have a few Twitter followers from the Bronx, and they've said that like people in the Bronx are not happy with AOC right now. And I mean, it's
not the greatest state the Bronx has ever been in, and that's saying something.
Well, and Staten Island supposedly is also like very, it's pro cops, so they're not a big fan of Bloomberg or any of his.
Well, Andrew, do you still live in the city, right?
No. I moved out there 20
Good
years
for
ago.
you. Good for you.
I moved out to the Midwest. I was done. I was born and raised in Queens. So to a certain extent, I understand, Trump's mentality. I mean, it's a completely different mindset. But I think people are waking up. I mean, you can't go to the gas station. You can't go to the supermarket and realize just how bad it is. I mean, things that again,
I've been out and about. I had to do a lot of like walking this week for different reasons, and so I'm out and about, right? I'm thinking to myself, all right, I'll just grab like a sandwich, right? Something just, and I'm like, oh my god, they want like $15 for a sandwich.
Yeah.
Well, is it? I think I have $15. That's not the problem here. The problem is I don't think it's worth buying a sandwich for that much money. And then you just go hungry. And I went to this was my like whole afternoon. I'm just trying to find lunch. I go to like 5 different like fast food joints, restaurants, and all kinds of stuff. And a meal for one human being that would make me feel like I had eaten something was upwards of $15 to $20. And I just said,
yeah,
fuck it all. I'll walk home and cook a meal.
And that's the problem. I mean, you've got families that are out there that are struggling. I mean, where do you juggle? I mean, there's only so much that you can do between your rent going up, your energy going up, your food costs going up, your gas, your insurance, and everything else. And so people are waking up. They may not necessarily agree with the candidate, philosophically, but at the end of the day, when you're struggling to put food on the table, and you remember how it was previously, that is going to affect, you going forward. And the sad thing is, I've always said, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, they're alternate sides of the same coin. I was with a friend of mine today, and I said, the left will put a gun to your head and ask for your money. The right will put a gun to your head and ask for your money, please.
Yeah,
but they're both taking your money.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like, who do you want robbing you? The polite guy or the impolite guy?
And that's why, like Shmuley and I in particular come from like the kind of post libertarian, like post Ron Paul phase of politics in starting talking about all this stuff, because we were like, hey man, fuck taxes. Like they get to a point, but and then there would be the people that go full on with that, the anarchists, right? Mm-hmm. And I know some really, really intelligent ones, some of the smartest guys I've ever known. But my thing always was I'm not really there, and also it's really hard to convince people of that, because as much as taxes suck, right? You get more benefit out of them than you put in. And that's the hook. That's the poison pill. That's what keeps everything going.
I don't know about that, because I actually heard somebody say, well, don't you want, your taxes go to pay for the roads. I just went on a trip last weekend, and I can tell you that money is not going to roads.
That was where I was going. That's where I was going. That is only true. People will only put up with the taxation as long as they're getting equal to or more than they've put in, which has been the case right up until probably we're getting there. If not yet, we're getting there to where the roads are falling apart. The bridges are literally collapsing. So now, are you getting as much as you pay in taxes out of it? Well, you may be still able to drive down the street, but you end up with the flat tire because of it. You may be able to, send your kids to school, but they'll turn them ways that you might disagree with. You may be able to do a lot of things, but you're going to get the least. And the government, the big point I've been driving home to anybody and everybody who will listen is the government is the least effective and least efficient way to do anything. And you should only use the break glass if you absolutely have to. Something like national defense or something where there's no real way to do it on a like local or state level. But man, we've leaned very heavily into the Fed just takes care of everything now.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say
they do it inefficiently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they suck at it.
Yeah, whether it's on the federal or the state or the local. You know, when I was back in New York on the Long Island Expressway, we used to joke that there were kids that hadn't been born yet that would retire from that construction because it never ended.
Right. Well, because every bit of paperwork is another job for somebody in the bureaucracy. I'm sure you're more than aware. Like, and that's the thing. Anybody who's like government worker but also blue collar at all feels the same way about the fucking bureaucracy that I do. My granddad was a postmaster general for quite a while, right? And his whole thing was like, if we could just not have the Senate make decisions for us, that would be great, because then we wouldn't be like underwater financially at all times, and we could actually run this business like a business.
Well, and
they don't. Yeah, they're not allowed to, because the Senate literally gets to set stamp prices and every other thing, business hours, etc.
I'm up here in central New York, and I think I know literally one person that would vote for Joe Biden. My stepfather. Everybody else is a Trump guy or Trump girl.
Well, I'll point out often on the show, a lot of my Hispanic and Black friends are like super gung-ho for Trump this go round, even if they weren't before, although some of them were before. But a lot of them weren't before. A lot of them voted for Joe Biden in 2020, and they're telling me now, like, wow, what a mistake that was. I can't afford, I can't afford anything. Basically, everybody's fucking losing it. And not necessarily like lower income bracket people I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the middle class, the middle and upper middle class even. Can't afford basic necessities anymore.
I mean, if you want to be realistic, right? Like, okay, you don't want to be a schmuck. You look at politics, look at what elites are backing who, what their differentiation is to the disagreements with the other elites that they're trying to take power from. And then once again, tell me, do you want the corpos, you want them to gain more power? Or would you rather the upstart guy who like sends rockets to and fro space, and the guy who made PayPal? And, would you rather those people who are proven incompetent have power, or, the people who can't get Discord to be programmed right?
Yeah.
Well, that's another thing that I pointed out over and over on the show, right, Sam? Boomers in government that don't, and it's not just because they're baby boomers. I know some people get triggered because I say they're baby boomers. It's older people, right, that don't understand technology specifically, right? And they're in the government making laws about said technology at every level. And they don't know how to make a Facebook account, much less anything to do with like cryptocurrency or any of these things. And it's fine if you're a boomer that doesn't understand technology, but like the idea that you might then want to make laws about it because every time they do it, I always point out that the Digital Millennium Copyright Act is dog shit made by boomers 20 years before they would have understood the consequences of their own actions, because they had to get something out. And then that's a lot of that's bureaucracy is on the policy side too. they have to pass a legislation, guys. Otherwise, we were failures as legislators. So let's pass some stupid bullshit that pertains to nothing currently and then ruins the internet for everybody in the next 20 years. That's what the Digital Millennium Copyright Act is. It should be repealed and replaced immediately if anybody had any sense. But unfortunately, almost every single person in Congress is a boomer, and so you couldn't even explain why it's so bad to them.
Yeah,
And they're the particular kind of boomers that they might be able to use Twitter on their phone and call their grandkids, but that's about it.
Well, I'm not even sure.
They're not coders.
I'm not sure Biden could even do that. I mean,
because I got boomer friends who are like super tech savvy, right?
So how are these congressmen even getting their mistresses? Are they like ringing up the phone? I mean, what are their mistresses also boomers?
Well, no. They still have phone numbers that they can call for their escort.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I was about to say, they have
to be able to use a rotary phone on it to call their mistresses nowadays.
Well, no. So this actually is a question that kind of does.
Because if I'm wrong, Sam, sorry to cut you off, but if I'm wrong, then where are all the leaks of them sexting people? Because you know that's what they would all fucking be doing.
Well,
Anthony Weiner.
Anthony Weiner.
I have to ask Andrew about this. I keep hearing all this people about body cams with the police, and speaking of technology, and what's your whole take on body cams? Because that's been a controversy for police so far.
Well, I think it backfired.
Mm-hmm.
They were pushing for it, and then they didn't like the results.
I was pushing for it, and I do like the results.
Yeah.
I just want to point out that there were what you're saying is they don't like the results because so often it shows the police are justified.
Yeah.
And the few times it's not, of course, it gets really hyped up in the media. I'm sorry.
Sure. Yeah, and that's always going to be the case. I think anything like that is a good thing. I mean, let's face it. You had like cops and live PD, and basically it's the same thing. It's a camera following them around, but it actually, in the vast majority of instances, shows what the cops are going through when they're dealing with these people, and when they don't realize they're being recorded. And so you're seeing that interaction. You're seeing, okay, well, the person comes out and says that the cop did A, B, and C. Then the video camera, body cam footage comes out, and it's like, yeah, no, that didn't happen.
Right.
And in this day and age, I think anything that you can do in terms of opening that and transparency. I mean, listen, do we get it right all the time? Absolutely not. You'd love to be able to go back and redo things. Do I think, every cop is the perfect cop? Absolutely not. There are some people that are on the job that shouldn't be on the job. It's not for everyone. The problem is that they wanted to diversify things to get this makeup of society, which is fine. Great. I absolutely believe that. But at the same time, you can't lower the rules that you have.
Right. Which they have.
That makeup, and that's what they've done. And I've seen that across from different departments.
Are you familiar with the Supreme Court case regarding the aptitude tests for firefighters that then applied also to police?
I'm aware of it. I don't know the particulars.
I can't remember the name of the case. Yeah, I can't remember the name of the case off the top of my head, but I think it would have happened slightly after you retired anyway.
Yeah.
But what happened in this case is that they decided that the picking based on those aptitude tests was racially biased.
Yeah.
And so actually now what they do is they exclude the highest scores is specifically based if you're certain races. And so like a cop who is extremely intelligent isn't actually going to get his badge because he's too intelligent, and that might fuck with their diversity, demographics, and everything. And I'm sure NYPD probably was like one of the worst in that particular case. Most certainly.
It goes
you can see the difference between now and 20 years ago anytime you see anything to do with them.
And you know what strikes me about this, because I know a little bit about data, right? I pride myself as a fairly educated guy. If you find something like that where you're like, wow, we're applying an aptitude test that measures intelligence, and we find that not enough of our Black or Hispanic or whatever candidates are meeting that. You know what you then do? You go give the test to more of them and find individuals of that community that meet the criteria, because they exist.
And the thing is, the argument in the case itself from the other side was that there is a low incentive for Black and Hispanic individuals to become police officers.
That's
for
fair.
A variety of reasons, one of which being it's not the most popular job, particularly in low-income areas in a city, among those particular populations. You're signing yourself up. I mean, for a world of hate, and they know you live there. You're supposed to be one of them. It's worse for them, actually, than it is for like a white officer.
That's nuance. That
a white officer to them is just the man. Like there's always the man, right? But when one of their own is like a man, the man, that is worse for them, and they treat them much worse. At least the ones I know.
And if you go back into the 70s, you had the Black Liberation Army, you had a bunch of other groups, and they would target Black officers because they viewed them as going against their race. And the problem with this is, listen, I get it. You want to have an agency, whether it's police, whether it's fire, it doesn't matter. Whatever industry, you want to have this makeup of people that reflects the community at large. And that's a wonderful thing to strive for. But at the same time, who do you want to get into an airplane with? Right. The best pilot or the one that just barely passed? And let's look at that across every industry, whether it's, the medical field, whether it's the legal field, it doesn't matter. Do you really care if your house is burning and you live up on the third floor? Are you concerned with the color or anything of the person or the sex coming through that door to rescue you if, God forbid, you can't walk and they have to carry you out?
All right. And so, you're not going to mend these fences with the Black community overnight either.
No.
No. And this is a thing I've pointed out to a lot of people before. Like you say, I come from like the hood, and a lot of my Black friends, it's like, why did they support BLM? Well, they're not leftists. I would say most of them would be what I would call apolitical, right? But why did they side with that? Well, because they know what it's like to be singled out by a cop, probably because of the color of their skin. And that is a thing that happens, right? And when it happens to you, that sucks, right? And you're going to remember it. And also, if you get your ass beat by the cops, but like, here's the thing about that. I did too. If you're poor and you live in a place where the cops kind of are that way and they have a culture of it, which the place I lived did, they'll beat your ass and they'll tell some story about how you got your injuries. And who are you to fight the cops? You don't have money for a lawyer. In fact, your lawyer tells you, look, the charge you're facing, you got to deal with that. So you don't. But I have a detached retina because he punched me from behind while I was in handcuffs talking to his partner. And I wish I had gone after it, but I had a charge to fight, right? What happened, flash forward, because you'll probably like the end of this story. He 2 years later, his partner, and 5 other officers, which made up the bulk of the force in that town, all not only got fired, but they got charged for corruption and for all the crazy, wild gangster stuff they were doing. For a while, we had state troopers came in and policed the area until we actually had to train up basically a whole new police force because those guys were wilding out. And so when that kind of stuff affects you, right? Yeah, like if they saw the BLM march, they saw, hey, I don't like when the cop put his hand on me either, and I think that whether rightly or wrongly, I think it was because I'm black, right? That's why they were out there, most of them. When you see the average crowd, that's all they were saying is, please, cops, stop beating my ass. That's it.
Yeah. And society has changed. It definitely has. And like I said before, should everybody be a cop? No, they shouldn't. Should everybody be a fireman? No. Doctor, all of it. Teachers.
Not everybody should be a trash man.
Exactly. It's not the the bottom line is cops are never going to get a fair shake on things because they basically are the enforcement arm of the government.
And they're in the trenches.
And I've told people,
you're the face of the government when you're in those trenches, right?
Yeah. And I've told people this before. You're going after the wrong people. If you don't like that the cops are enforcing whatever, those aren't the ones that you need to deal with. It's the cops don't make the laws. You have to go to your politicians. So if you don't want cops, enforcing a particular thing, well, arguing with them isn't going to solve anything.
My biggest thing to people, no matter what, arguing with a cop on the side of a road is a bad idea. That's what I've always told people. It's just a bad idea. One, they don't want to be on the side of the road. Cops get killed that way all the time. Right. You think the cop pulling you over sucks for you. It sucks for them too. Maybe not as much in some cases, but it does. It sucks for a cop to pull you over because then they have to stand on the side of the road and wonder if some drunk's going to just swerve. And if you laugh at that, that happens all the fucking time.
It does. It does.
So then they're dealing with whatever situation. It's just not. It's not great, right? It's not. Obviously, some guys aren't cut out to be cops. They get a power trip, right? And they think they can get away with murder. That usually that guy, it catches up with them eventually because all the other cops don't. I don't know. I find that like full-on corruption of all the cops is very fucking rare.
And the problem is that
usually one or two guys.
The system, because there were cops where it's like, listen, I ain't working with them, but the system doesn't know what to do with that. Right. And again, you're so shorthanded. When I came on, I remember back in the 80s, we were so shorthanded. And just to give people an idea, when I'd work a midnight shift in Queens, we'd have 2 cars out there. That's 4 cops. We had a population, in one of the precincts in Queens, we had a population of 100,000. We had 4 cops. And so policing is an illusion. Listen.
Pretty much in bad neighborhoods, that's 100% true. And in some places, the police aren't welcome.
No.
Right? Like that's
being
Irish and from Boston, I know about that.
Yeah, in many places you're almost like an occupying army. They don't want you there, but they need you there. Right. And that actually breeds resentment because I've worked in those precincts before where you don't want me here, but if I'm not here, you're going to be a crime victim. So,
or you've already been and taken care of,
But in a lot of ways, I think they're so short-staffed now that the requirements just keep dropping, and you see that across the board in just about everything.
And now even less people. I mentioned that the Black Hispanic populations are not incentivized to become police. Well, now nobody is. Because, hey, I'm a white guy with a couple of cops in my family. Why would I want to get into that business? Why would I want to be one of the most hated people in the country?
I would not recommend it for anybody because right now, like I said, when I came on, it was a difficult time. Crime was bad and everything else. But we at least had the overall support of the people and the politicians. That doesn't exist now. And so why would you take the job? You know, you're in most instances, they're not getting paid a lot of money, especially like you go out into rural areas. They're basically, you know, they're like one step above food stamps. Yeah. And so why would you do that if you knew that you were going to be on the chopping block?
And I feel that that's why corruption is bred, because the only real answer is you want to be that bully. And that's why there's, I think today, more of those bully cops around that like to push people around than there were previously, because previously you had good reasons to get into it. You know what I mean? It was a respected occupation, and not that long in the past. I think people forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It still is. It still is for here. I think New York's a similar way, where they kind of have almost a cop worship mentality that I can be a bit critical of. It's always, yeah, because if I criticize, I've been in the, I guess, police accountability kind of side of things for a long time. As you can tell, I'm probably not one of the more extreme ones on that. And I think most of them are crazy. But I do think that there is a point. The problem is then it got out of control. I can't even agree with the police accountability movement, quote unquote, anymore, because it left me behind years ago. For all those years, I was screaming about, hey, let's do something about these bad cops specifically who did these specific things they didn't want to hear about. Nobody cared. Now a bunch of college-age rich white girls care all of a sudden, and so it's a big thing. But you're not allowed to call for accountability, responsibility, transparency. No. Defund the police. Get rid of the police. All cops are evil. And I'm like, well, but that's okay. Well, then we just gave up the entire movement. Because I'm talking about reform, and you're talking about mental insanity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Here's the funny thing, and I've told this to people before. We talk about the police almost like in an abstract. Mm-hmm. They're the police. What we don't realize is they come from our communities. Mm-hmm. They're us. They're your neighbor. They're, you know, the person that you know. We're not hiring them from a different planet.
Right.
They're us. And so they put on a uniform and they become something different. But when you're dealing with it, it's like everything else. You wouldn't, I mean, if a doctor screws up a surgery and a person dies, you don't fire the entire, hospital staff. You deal with the doctor that,
exactly.
and every industry.
The baby doesn't go out just because the bath water has gotten cold.
Exactly. And, when I came on the job, we were still walking foot posts, So when you're out there and you're by yourself, all you've got is a gun, a nightstick, and a radio. And
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
As a couple of cops I know have told me that the number one call they get, more than anything else, unless they're on traffic, right, is domestic violence. Is that your experience?
Yeah.
And that can, because we're talking about police being humans, how many times are you going to walk into those situations? And a lot of them are very ugly, just period, and emotional, and you have feelings about it. How could you not? But you're also supposed to be the impartial arm of the law, And
that's the thing. I was joking with a friend of mine. I said, when I first came on the job, I was 21 years old, and I remember going out on a domestic, and it was an older couple. I think they were probably in their 50s. Here I am, they've been married for God knows how long, and they're having a domestic, and I'm 21 years old, and you expect me to solve this?
Yeah, they're like, we've been fighting longer than you've been alive.
Exactly. But one of the things that I
and how many, the other thing is people don't realize how many domestic abuse cases are mutual.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, we had plenty of them where it was just which day of the week who beat the other one up. Yeah. And the crazy thing about that is that you're going to go to that call next week because they're in love. And this is just the way they show their ways of affection with each other.
Oh no, I don't want to press charge. I fell into a door.
Yeah.
That's one thing my dad told me. He said, if two lovers are fighting, never jump in. He's like, he could be beating the hell out of. He's like, don't do it, because all of a sudden now both are coming after you.
Almost certainly.
They're going at it. You jump in there, now they've got a common enemy.
That's probably more true for cops than anybody else, now that I think about it.
Probably so. Yeah.
You go to stop the guy, and then the girl starts clawing at you. Yeah, that probably happens all the time.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Because no matter what, because most of the time, maybe one of them called, but more often than not, it's a neighbor or something. So you just show up on the doorstep. They're arguing, but they argue all the time. Now you're here and you try to intervene, and you are now their common enemy.
And by your mere presence, the situation has escalated.
Yeah, and I imagine.
And there used to be a time. Now there's a mandatory arrest. You don't even have a choice in it. But there used to be a time where you could actually sit down and talk to them, and usually you could reconcile that. And that's what I was going to get back to. When I came on the job, you really had limited resources with you. And so you learn to communicate effectively with people. And I'm not talking about the shitheads that you dealt with on a regular basis.
Right.
That's a game. That's cops and robbers. And they know that.
I want to clarify. Some of my best friends nowadays are police, and that's why I'm very measured about things I say, because I've seen both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah. So, but you also learn, we'd have frequent flyers. They were guys that were always in trouble. You saw them, you knew exactly what was up. They knew. And so you dealt with them in one way. And it was never personal. It was always business.
Oh, I'm sure some of them are your little buddy, right?
Yeah. And then
I have a friend that's that guy. He's always the best friend of the cops after he's been busted,
Yeah.
Jokes and laughs and all that.
But then you also had to deal with the kids that weren't. And so you really had to, develop that ability to communicate with people. Because, when you're walking a footpost, God forbid something happens, you want somebody calling for you.
Right.
If you piss everybody off, well, you're getting your ass beat.
I mean, like just to say how different it is, at least here and now, they don't respond to a call, get out of a cruiser or anything here in, I think, the entire state of Massachusetts, if I'm not mistaken, unless there's 2 officers, each with a cruiser. That's the minimum to respond to anything. Yeah. You were just on your own, and not, again, kiddos, there was no cell phones.
No.
So the closest call box is what you're relying on, or an old lady with a rotary phone.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's tough.
Yeah, but again, it you learn how to communicate with people. You learn how to de-escalate with that, because you're forced to.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. Nowadays, it seems like, I see guys, and, kudos, they have all of this gear on them and whatnot. But I think it takes away from the ability, because you tend to escalate a little bit faster. So
yeah, we see a lot of those cases that I think are so unfortunate, and of course there's people get outraged, but I look at it more as like a sad situation, because it'll be like a disabled kid, right? Mm-hmm. Or teen or something like that, that's acting a certain way, and then the kid ends up getting shot, where otherwise there could have been communication. Some of these guys they lean a little heavily. Was the decision, oh my God, what is the decision? The decision that cops have no duty to protect the public. That was after you, I think, right? It was the guy that got stabbed on the subway.
I'm familiar with the law on that.
I think that was the mid 2000s or even the 2010s, if I'm not mistaken. But I
don't remember the date offhand. But yes, the police do not have an obligation to protect you.
Right. Yeah. And I just, it's like a lot of people are shocked by that.
Right.
but it kind of makes sense regardless of what people like. There's a reason for it and all that. But yeah, like cops actually, for those that don't know, I again can't remember the name of the case, but a gentleman was on a subway. He was attacked by what was a known person of interest who had been attacking people. But I think he had murdered some people, and he went after this guy just on the subway randomly with a knife. I believe the guy was a schizophrenic or something to that nature. And the cops were on the train, and they were behind a door that they could have opened and intervened, and they actually just watched it happen until the guy that was being stabbed overtook the stabber, and then they came and intervened, and the court ruled that they acted appropriately, and that, you know, despite the slogan "serve and protect," that there are other factors at play. And I think one thing people forget is that compromising their safety is also compromising the safety of their post. So it's not just their own little cowardice. Sometimes it would be like, well, but if I'm not here, then what? If the killer gets through me, but you look at that exact case and you're like, why would you just stare through a window?
Yeah,
hard to say.
So I actually do have a question in chat that from a while ago. So why exactly does
2006, by the way, Sam, I just looked it up. Sorry.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I believe that was right after you retired.
Yeah.
Question from chat, and apologies, it kind of scrolled by.
Seems to be Colorado versus Gonzalez.
Yes.
That figures. Two things. I do have so why is there an intelligence division in the NYPD?
Basically, the intelligence division handled or oversaw investigations for like organized crime, different groups within the city, monitoring them. It was an intelligence gathering operation, and the organized crime was a large component of that.
Gotcha.
Because it's the size of a country is the answer, Sam.
Huh?
Because it's the size of a country, Sam.
Yeah. And that has changed over the years since I left there. After 9/11, a lot of the different things. Well, we created Counterterrorism Bureau.
Oh yeah.
But so I can only answer when I was there, not now, because I don't know what the changes have been. I know that they were no longer doing organized crime, things like that, towards when I retired.
But at the time you were there, that makes more sense. Obviously, we didn't have VHS. 9/11 hadn't happened yet,
right?
And so, but like, yeah, Sam, like you're talking about a city the size of some small nations in terms of population density.
No,
the cops having intelligence it's because how many officers were like the average size of the force those days? Like in the tens of thousands, right?
Back in when after Giuliani took over and they merged transit and housing, I think at our peak we were around 50,000.
Yeah. So like they need intelligence to organize all that. It's like a small army.
No, that made sense to me. Chat was just wondering about that, and I kind of that was a question from chat. I kind of figured, because I'm big into police history and espionage and also crime history, that it had to do something with organized crime and whatnot.
We're just it's like the general state of things at a meta level in the city idea.
Well,
you know,
so
I'm sure they monitor all kinds of stuff that way. Like that's the whole point. And get the information to like, okay, well this guy over here needs it. This guy like that. Yeah, literally, you would need somebody to facilitate that for 50,000 people for sure.
Also, quick ad read from our friends at nope, it's not gonna do it this go around. Okay. Never mind. Yeah, it. I thought we had an ad, and then it disappeared.
I was gonna start like generically saying how great the product was.
Well, I just want to say, that if you're a cop, you don't make the law, you just enthusiastically enforce it with violence, right?
Well, we wish.
Well, that
the funny thing is, everybody talks about like well, whatever you call them, summonses, citation tickets, or whatnot.
Yeah,
and I absolutely hated it. I mean, and they talk about well, you have a quota. Yeah, there actually is such a thing as a quota. We used to have to write, I believe at the time it was like 25 a month, and you had to have 2 movers. And it would take me like, 30 days to get somebody going through a red light that was legitimately, I mean, it was like I'd sit there and count, and you'd have to get to 10 to go through the red light, and I'd be like, oh, okay. And fire hydrants. I wrote fire hydrants because I figured if you didn't give a shit, well, I shouldn't either. But most cops, the majority of cops, hate it. I mean, it's one of those things.
The equivalent of picking up trash on the side of the road.
It's like I felt bad because you're either going to work, you're coming home from work, and why am I doing this for the city? I mean, you have to and whatnot, but the vast majority of them, they despise it. It's like, but of course, all the ones that actually enjoy it get all the headlines.
Well, because Because the initial idea behind a law, like any of those, is like for it to be punitive, right? But then the city gets the bright idea that this is a revenue stream. Exactly. Now it's mandatory.
Yeah,
exactly. and it get the incentives get all fucked up because the machine. That's the thing I really like to hammer home with people is like any individual within that machine is not necessarily as responsible for the goings on of the machine as you might think.
There was this loser we used to make fun of all the time, and him and his buddies went around to these meter maids.
Yeah,
and just started like berating these poor meter maids, dude, until they quit.
They were on the Colbert Report or whatever years ago because it's these libertarian weirdos in New Hampshire that like think they're really smart, and so they're like anarchists, right? And so they go out and harass the meter maid while she's just doing her thing. And like one of them even would wear a gun, like because it's open carry up there. And they'd yell at her and everything, and go, "Oh, you road pirate!" and all this stuff.
Yeah. They're like, "You
couldn't realize why everybody thought they were like wackos.
You statist.
And that's the whole thing. I mean, if the people got together and they decided that they didn't want this, go after your politicians. Those are the ones that are responsible for the legislation.
Yeah, the meter maid didn't make meter maidery or whatever the fuck you want to call it.
And they're not making that much money. I mean, it's like, certainly not what the politicians making.
The crosswalk guard is not making a lot of money, and they're not your enemy. I'm sorry, guys. They're just there to make sure the kids get to school.
Yeah. That was also, as much as I cringe at some of his political takes, that was one of the things that Don Winslow wrote in one of his novels about the NYPD that I actually really liked. Was he said something along the lines of like the reason why there's corruption in the police force is because there's corruption in Albany, basically, was what he was basically saying when he wrote The Force. Now, that seems pretty cynical to me.
Somewhat, but a religious man might say the reason there's corrupt police is because there's corruption in the heart of men.
Well, yeah.
Well, it's a funny thing. If you want to deal or learn about police corruption, and again, I'm all about being transparent. I've read stuff going back to like the late 1800s, the early 1900s. And I mean, this is stuff that'll make your toes curl. The level of corruption. I mean, we talk about corruption now, and
it used to be a lot more open and a lot more see, that's the other thing is like, I understand the broad spectrum of it, that, you look at some of the ways that like Chicago 100 years ago used to work was basically the mob's in charge, the cops work for them, and if you're not a part of that, stay out of all of their way.
Yeah. And again, in New York City, where you had Tammany Hall, and the level of corruption, everybody was getting a kick. Everyone.
I've brought this up on the show before from Boston. My grandfather's good friend, Uncle Jimmy James Bulger, was kind of a hero in the community, and he gave me candy when I was a kid.
Yeah. Well, so is John Gotti.
Yeah. Yeah, because whatever, they had their code, right? Yeah, and in that neighborhood, like I said, police weren't really welcome in South Boston at that period of time, and so the mob's kind of the police.
Yeah,
and so a lot of people had a positive opinion. That's why they helped him get away for so long.
Yeah, and there's corruption at every level. It's just it's the amount of corruption. So when you're talking about, whether it's
sunlight's the best disinfectant, like you're saying, see, people are going to be surprised that I agree with the NYPD guy on so much because I'm the anti-police activist in their mind. But actually, I'm just a transparency, accountability, reform guy.
Right.
And like you were pointing out, if not for reform, we'd be 1832. The cop just didn't see anything because you married his daughter.
Yeah.
Even though you killed 5 guys. Like, who would care? Who would know? You're out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And we have to. I mean, you're going to find corruption at every point, whether you can go from police, you can go to fire marshals, you can go to building inspectors, and right across the whole spectrum. I would say you'd
find maybe even more in a lot of the bureaucracy in terms of at least taking it out of money, pure and simple. And in fact, I often argue the one thing that I find that critics of police they're just flat out wrong about is the defunding thing. Like if you care about reform, if you care about criminal justice reform at all, you want more funding for police. But you don't want it in the militarization stuff, which actually again seems to have come a little bit after, maybe a little started during your time, but mostly after. Where cops out in the burbs are now getting Bearcats because they had, gang problems, which happens to be people that listen to the Insane Clown Posse. But hey, they're on a list. Give us some money. We got gangs out here. And now they all have body armor and all this, high-tech stuff because they're basically, because they can, because they want to be cool. And then what are you going to do if not use it, right?
It falls under the free money thing. Mm-hmm. You're getting these grants, and so you either don't use it or you use it. It was like when they were giving away all of the military vehicles. Now, to a certain extent, I go, okay, it's a free Humvee. And you go, well, what do you need a Humvee for? Well, I mean, they're great vehicles, especially if you have a flood where you can go and rescue people. So there are certain uses.
Right on, and you're going to get it at surplus pricing, which helps.
Or if the government gives it to you.
Yeah,
so
just straight up
would you turn it down? But I mean, it's kind of a weird thing because,
I'm for the body armor, by the way. I think that should be a little more. I actually think that we should have more body armor, less Bearcats. That's my take.
And again, it really depends. I think that you need a Bearcat, in a rural place? Probably not. But then you go down the road of, well, you only need it once.
Well, let me,
God forbid you have to have it and you don't have it, it's a problem.
That's why it's all the poison pill.
I've thought of the subject, and it would be great given the guest's experience. Kind of, my fear is not that the police sort of have these equipment for like the edge case. What I think is problematic is they do a lot of training. They build up a culture from the people who train them. And then all of a sudden, you've got a drug dealer and you could scope his house out and he goes to Walmart, every Thursday for munchies, right? But like, instead of pulling him over there, getting his keys, going to the house, obviously what we need to do is kick the door down in the middle of the night and have guys pointing machine guns to the window. I've
been on the receiving end of one of those. I lived in a rooming house, a few years back. And one day I go out to get the mail. I turn around and there was lasers on my chest and I saw all the DEA agents. And really, they could have caught that guy a billion times. And when they did catch him, he just kind of said, "Oh, yeah, you got me." And just like turned himself in.
And I'm not trying to, Monday night quarterback, but there is real danger. I mean, there's a danger to kicking down a door in the middle of the night on a no-knock raid. And I think that a lot of these cops end up doing that. Everything becomes a nail if you've got the hammer.
I'm generally against the no-knock raid, period. I would prefer it not because I think that it opens too many possibilities for not even like abuse, but mistakes. But I can see the benefit of it from a law enforcement point of view, no doubt.
Let the guest speak on this subject.
It's one of those things where every search warrant, every arrest warrant is going to be different, and I tend to agree with you on this. You want to take the path of least resistance. If the guy's got a particular pattern that he follows habitually, you want to get him alone.
Yeah,
that's it. Minimize it. If you know that he goes to this particular location, on every Thursday, I would rather have him in a car and be able to box him in an area where I can control, as opposed to going into a house that I hated houses. Because no matter what and a lot of times you got to remember, you're relying off of a confidential informant for the information. They are not always accurate.
Unreliable, it would be.
Yeah, they could be unreliable. Let's put it that way. So if you can have a confined area where you can control it, as opposed to going into a house where the CI tells you, "Oh yeah, it's cool. It's just him in there," and you go in there and he's got 3 pit bulls. He's got his girlfriend's running a daycare center. It's bad. But every one of them is different, and so you got to kind of you sometimes you can control it, and other times you kind of got to roll with it. It really just depends on the situation.
Yeah, I just worry that, and maybe it's just my perception is off, but I feel like there is a degree to which, cops in the 70s and 80s would have had more of like how do I solve this in the least aggressive manner, where as if you've got the Bearcat in the armored car and you can knock the door down and send it's like, well, I got this tool, I might as well do it, and I'm trained to do it, right?
And that's what I was getting back to before is, policing has changed over the years, where a lot of it was communication driven, where you actually had to know how to talk to people, and how to talk to specific people. You didn't escalate everything because you were basically alone.
And how much of that is serving a warrant where you're arresting somebody? Probably most of it, right? Or at least a significant chunk. Where the guy's like, all right, let's go, right?
And a lot of times when you had a warrant for somebody's arrest, you'd call them up, say, hey, listen, don't make us come get you.
Right, that's worse.
we're either gonna do this like gentlemen, or and most of the time it worked. They turned themselves in, and you just dealt with it that way. It's things are changing. Unfortunately,
even despite the abuse in my case, I cooperated fully. That's kind of what ticked the guy off, I think. Right? Because he was just he told me, oh, I'm an Iraq veteran, and I was like, well, look, man, if you can't keep your anger under control, then you're in the wrong profession.
Yeah.
And he didn't appreciate me saying that from my position in handcuffs in the back of a car, but I also was acquitted. So there's that, but and they didn't know about the situation because I lived in a different town that it happened in. So they were just there to come pick me up, and for whatever reason, decided I was the worst guy in the world or whatever, or had a bad day, and that happens, right? And it took me a long. I'll be honest, I have PTSD from it, to where if a cop pulls me over, my heart jumps for sure. But now I have friends who are cops, like I said. I'm cool. It's just being in that situation from like that past experience is like, oh shit, Sure. And then I realized, but that's not this guy. Let me talk to him, see what's up, And I've never had any other situation with police that wasn't resolved by talking to them. Ever.
And that's the way. I mean, there are going to be exceptions to everything, but at the end of the day, you can't take it personal. This isn't personal. This is business.
Right.
I mean, if somebody wants to, jump ugly with you, and you pull somebody over and they start running their mouth. My thing was always, listen, I was going to write you a summons for this. You want to keep me here because I can keep writing more. That's up to you. Most of the time when you explained it to them like that, they're like, oh, okay. And like I said,
actually, what really set him off is he kept searching me. Right, I completely was cooperative with it because he was incensed that I had marijuana. Okay, I didn't, and he kept searching me and he didn't find it, but he smelled it. Here's the thing: I told you, it's a rooming house. My roommate across the hall smoked pot all damn day, so they smelt it, and he decided it must be me because look at my long hair. It must be me, right? And I was just like, bro, I don't have any pot. Like, I don't know what you want. And he didn't find it. And he got mad and he hit me. And then I talked to him in the car and that's when I was a smart ass. Now you've already broken the code, right? You've already gone above and beyond what you were supposed to do. So now I'm going to do what I do best and run my big fat mouth at you and see if I can provoke you a little more. Because what are you going to do? Well, you beat me up for no reason. What are you gonna do? You gonna beat me up more? Look at me. I'm huge. I can take it.
Sorry to interject too much, but I will have to cut it short, lads. I'm gonna head out. But one question for the guest: have you seen Officer Maggot from Sam Hyde? It's a Sam Hyde skit.
No.
You should watch it. It's very funny. Anywho, everybody have a good night. It was lovely speaking to you, sir.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us, Shmuley. Yes, so, real quick, since Shmuley, we're kind of in an intermission. I think I got the ad reads working again. So
technical difficulty solved. There it is.
It's time to say goodbye to Starbucks and say hello to Rumble's 1775 coffee. Unlike other brands, this is a coffee that backs free speech and is unapologetic about it. Visit 1775coffee.com. Use the promo code STUDIO40 to get 40% off any coffee subscription. The coffee comes in medium and dark roast. It also comes in peaberry, which is similar to Kona coffee. In other words, this stuff is premium. Click the link in the live chat or the description. You can also go directly to 1775.com and use the promo code STUDIO40 to get 40% off today.
I'll tell you, Sam, I for one am sold by that advertisement. Free coffee, you say?
Yeah, well, I didn't even have to make fun of the sponsor.
Why would you make fun of the sponsor? What kind of idiot would make fun of their own sponsors of their show?
Well,
I'd hate to be that stupid.
Yeah, the same person who.
No, we're thankful for our sponsors here.
Yeah, indeed.
For supporting free speech, especially.
The same people who brag about actually being drug dealers in New York.
I was nice to you, Sam.
At some point.
Right.
So, anyway, though, well, I mean, we've covered a whole gamut of topics.
Yeah. I just wanted to point out, MAGA News Network is glad that Schmugly left. Says Smugly so cringe. And also so they've sent in a couple of these. I'm just gonna read them. MAGA News Network says for $1, Smugly, which is Shmooly, is so full of himself and delusional. For $1, Taco Bell taco emoji and Cheez-It have blasted together to create the sluttiest, cheesiest menu items of our lifetime. I'm not sure what the hell that's about. And then it says it again for another. So that message was important enough to send twice. Something about slutty cheese, I guess.
Well, we've got
Back to you, Sam.
Well, we've done a couple of.
Thanks, chat.
We have ad reads, I guess, for products that aren't even ours, but hey, I'll take them. We've got The Dogs Wore Out, and sir, we've got your book series too, which is quite interesting. Like I said, I just bought Perfect Pawn and Queen's Gambit.
I was gonna say Queen's Gambit's the one I would recommend, actually.
So,
well, I appreciate you guys picking them up.
Oh yeah.
What made you decide to, I guess, write in the genre? I mean, you would think after a long career as a police officer, you might get sick and tired of all things police, but was it just experience, or
or you just like solving mysteries?
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that I pick apart anything that I watch that's NYPD related, because you sit there and it was like, I remember watching an episode of NYPD Blue one day, and they went from Queens to someplace in Central Park, I think, in like 30 seconds. And I have never been able to travel that quick before. So there's a lot of things that I pick apart, and I was like, I can write NYPD because I lived it, and I can make it plausible and get rid of all the nonsense with it. But my whole writing,
I like it. Yeah, that's like I said, I've been reading for quite a while now. I can't even remember when I got Queen's Gambit was the first one I read, and I was like, man, it's such a digestible. I'm that kind of minded guy where I hate mysteries that go off into convoluted stuff. I want to solve the puzzle. Yours are more like a procedural, in my opinion, and that's exactly why I like them.
It was weird because I grew up reading Joe Wambaugh, who wrote LAPD stories. Mm-hmm. But I also read Frank Herbert and Dune and Tom Clancy. So I'm kind of all across the genres as a reader. But the one thing that I liked, Joe Wambaugh's police procedurals, but I love the world building in Frank Herbert and in Tom Clancy. So that's what I was striving for when I started writing. I had to, and actually my writing started off as a.
And you clearly love the city.
Huh?
You clearly love the city because you have built your New York is a place, right?
Yeah.
Whether it corresponds 1-to-1 with real New York, sometimes maybe whatever. you know, just for the sake of a story, but it is a place. It has a feeling, a vibe to it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of, again, what makes it good to me. It's a procedural, but it feels like a cohesive world, whether or not it's the real world. It's close enough for a guy like me, because I'm not the big, you know, if I'm reading something modern times, I don't like fantastical elements so much, or silly shit.
No, and there is some literary.
I like that in my fantasy, you know.
Yeah, I take some literary leeway with some of this stuff, but I wanted to, whatever I wrote, I wanted to bring the reader into that world, and let them see things and experience stuff that had a level of realism to it that you wouldn't get. Like I said, I've seen too many things that just it jumps the shark. But in light of everything going on now in the world, I guess everything is. You can do anything in a book now.
It's like, what do you do that's even like satire anymore?
Well,
where are we? What happened?
Well, and I think and I think also, like, that's part of the problem with, like, a lot of the defund the police types is they see movies like Dirty Harry or something like that, and they think that that's every single cop, when, like, in reality, that, you know, like, I love I'm a huge Clint Eastwood fan, but that's clearly
but he's an anti-hero, clearly.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to think he's this clean-cut good guy. He's literally dirty in the name.
Yeah. It's fiction. Yeah, you got to be able to separate the two. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people
He's right, the depictions of police in media are often very unflattering.
Yeah.
Or they give the worst their take on what is like he's saying, an older police related film. It'll just be like the least generous take on it.
Yeah.
And it drives me crazy, you know. Or the common theory is like that, like CSI, that's like real cops.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, yeah, sure. And so is the X-Files, is the real FBI too. Okay.
And the bad thing about that is that you actually get people to believe that stuff actually happens. You know, It's like, so you watch.
Just CSI. Go get the DNA and solve the case. Why don't you?
Exactly. Yeah, they think that, or you know, yeah, there's a grainy image of a license plate, and you can push an enhance button, and it'll make it clear as day. No, that doesn't happen.
I still continue to surprise people all the time when I introduce them to the fact of half of all murders are unsolved.
Yeah.
That's the statistic. And that there's a lot of reasons for that, one of which being manpower.
Yeah.
Just straight up.
Well, I mean, it was with serial killers. They only have an approximate number of active serial killers. And the reason why is those are the ones they've been able to establish a pattern for.
Yeah.
How many active serial killers they are, they don't really know. Because if you don't have a pattern, the chances are you're never going to get found out. And that's a very interesting element to it, because if you move from state to state and you just basically keep mixing up your MO, they're never going to be able to develop a pattern on you.
Right. Yeah, and that's it. It's scary. But even more than that, the vast majority, and you'll know this, the vast majority of them are like people, you know, might be like a gang thing or a lover's dispute or whatever, or it's because it's not a serial killer, right? It's somebody that kills somebody, and then their murder ends up just unsolved for so many reasons, right? And in a file, of course, a friend of the show, a friend of mine, Andres Sherm, he's an artist, goes by Satanic or whatever. His mom was murdered when he was a baby. And her case went unsolved mostly because she's a hooker, you know, or sex worker, as I guess you're supposed to say now. I don't mean any disrespect for it. In fact, it's like heart-wrenching to hear his story which I didn't even know until last year. He went and he worked with the private investigators who do true crime podcasts. And he was there for a different case thing. He was talking to them and he mentioned his mom's case, and they sunk their own money in and did an full investigation, and really found out a lot about it that he had never known because nobody ever told him, because his mom was just another cold case in a drawer. And there was a cop, turns out, that really did care very deeply about that case and kept copious notes. And there was a bunch more cops that didn't give two shits. And because of that, this boy, who then shuffled off and, to his grandparents and stuff, never got to know not only what happened to his mom, who she was or anything. And this is something that happens every day in this country. These murders are not solved. We don't live in that clean TV universe that you see most of the time. And even detective novels, like ideally you want something wrapped up at the end, right? But that's not how most of real life even works. And
no. And it also it depends on the jurisdiction too. I mean, with with NYPD, you'll have a dedicated homicide squad that looks at the homicides. You go out into the the middle of the country, and you may have a detective that's working every case.
Yeah, the detective's working every major and minor crime.
Yeah,
just one guy. Yeah.
Yep. And so
I don't know if it's like this right now, but the state of Detroit, when I was last there, the police force just couldn't. The city went bankrupt. Yeah. And they had a message on the phone when you called 911 saying, we cannot respond to these parts of the city unless there's literally a body. And even then there's going to be a wait because we just don't have any officers. And Detroit is not a small city and not a great place to live either, unfortunately.
I forget what city it was, but they were actually closing down police precincts on the evening because they had no staffing for it.
Yeah, Detroit closed down whole precincts, period.
Yeah,
for entire swaths of right around 7 Mile Road and Gradson Drive and all that. Not that you're familiar, but the inner city area, they just say we won't come there anymore if you call. And that sounds awful, and it is. And that's where the gangs are. You can make no mistake about that because the cops won't come there. Of course, that's where the gangs are. And if you have the misfortune of living there, well, buy a gun is what they'll tell you or something. Private security has become a thing in Detroit now because they just don't have police. But if you can't afford that, a lot of the downtown corporations are in some of that area. A lot of their executives will just hire private security to take them to and from work because they'll literally get mugged.
And it begs the question to people. I mean, if think about it, you look at what Detroit was at one time. I mean, it was one of the jewel cities of the United States. And look how it's fallen. And you've got to, I mean, let's be honest, you got to take a step back and say, what caused this? What level of apathy in terms of politics led to this?
I can tell you the number one thing was the outsourcing of all the auto jobs. And that's, every one of my black friends from that area would say the same thing. Their dad, their uncle, their mom, somebody in their family when they were a kid worked for one of those plants. And now they live on food stamps in the ghetto.
Yeah.
And the only way I have a chance at doing anything is becoming an athlete, a rapper, or a gangbanger.
Yeah.
And they chose, most of them chose both rapper and gangbanger. And that's how I knew them because I was a producer.
Yeah.
But they were hardcore street motherfuckers, and the reason for it is because they're from a hardcore place like that. And that was before the police force collapsed due to budgetary catastrophe. The whole city went bankrupt. They don't have a lot of services in Detroit anymore.
Yeah.
Chicago's running the same path too.
Yes, they are.
The Chicago PD is stretched about as thin as ever. And they're about to have that convention there, and I'm not so sure that I would want to be in Chicago right now.
Yeah, I'd been up to Chicago a number of times, and it's gotten to the point where it would be like going back to New York for me. There's just no point in it. And it's sad because a lot of these cities really are fantastic cities. It's just that they're falling apart. And rather than somebody hitting the brakes and saying, hey, wait a second, we've got to change this. You know, we've got to worry about our citizens. It's like they're
they hit the gas. They don't hit the brakes, they hit the gas.
Yes, yeah.
It's not, Chicago, in my mind, it's a toss-up of whether Chicago or Detroit is worse, but they're both really, really awful places to be from. And I lean towards Detroit because I feel like it's the forgotten place, because most people don't know they don't have cops.
Yeah.
There are little baby children right now, you know, living over on 7 Mile, Outer Drive, Gradson, in this hellhole of burnt down. I don't know if you know about like Devil's Night, but in Detroit, every year there's a burnt down part of the city and they burn it down again, essentially. And it's where all the crackheads and the homeless people and the drug users, they sleep in these burnt down it's really awful. Yeah. And there's also little children living there, right? Watching the people shoot up on the side of the road every fucking day of their life. It's absolutely, you know, detestable to me. And I'm a little kind towards all my gangbanger friends. I'm like, well, if you come from this, I guess you got to do what you got to do, right? Just don't involve me in any of it.
Yeah.
Well, and and same thing is happening in California even too. I mean, I know people who are moving away from, California and Los Angeles and all of those areas. In fact, like
you got Gavin Newsom only cleaning up San Francisco for a foreign leader.
That was one of my favorite things. That's probably why they won't run him for president now.
I think they wanted the money from Kamala. I think I pointed this out, Sam, since we're talking about it. I said that unless you heard from Obama or Hillary that Joe was dropping, you should take it not seriously. What happened, Sam, is Obama said that he should drop, and he dropped. But what also happened, I didn't configure on, is that Hillary had the different opinion. And it does seem to be that the two major players of the Democrat Party are not on the same side in this, which is what leads me to believe they can say that Kamala secured the delegates enough all they want. I would wait until the convention because, see, during roll call, if you watched the 1968 convention, and although I wasn't alive, I have in full because it's such an interesting, fascinating little piece of history. And you see all the lineups, 1968 Democrat convention. There was an assassination attempt on a popular candidate. That one was successful. That threw the party into chaos. They had to pick a candidate. And if there's not the same thing will happen this time, by the way, for anybody that doesn't know how this works, because the Democrats have different rules than even the Republicans, but also than the general election, is they're going to do a roll call. All 3,900 delegates, not including the 700 super delegates who have like more voting power than they're worth. They will roll call for the person that they're going to be voting for. And if Kamala secures 70% of that roll call, she is the nominee. If she doesn't, if she secures 69.9%, then they go to an open voting system where you can literally vote for Mickey Mouse, and every one of those delegates gets to speak if they want to nominate somebody. Now, I propose to you, Sam, that a lot of those delegates are young Democrats. Young, politically involved Democrats, many of whom are pro-Palestine supporters. Do you think, Sam, that they're not going to take advantage of an open microphone in front of half the country at least to grandstand about their issues like a bunch of Zoomers on TikTok? I've got some beachfront property to sell you.
They're absolutely going to.
This is gonna be a mess. Did you see the protest there at the Capitol? Right, they insurrected the Capitol. These Palestine protesters. Because I'm pretty sure if you go into the Capitol uninvited now, that's an insurrection, right? And that was the standard we all decided on. I didn't get a say.
I think we've moved on from that. Yeah, those rules changed again.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm just going to pretend I'm slow and keep calling it that because they burned our American flag. Wow. Never seen that one before. Oh, my God, I'm going to cry.
My favorite thing, and I'm only 29, but I do not understand this whole thing of the Zoomers trying to make Kamala quirky and whatnot.
What else do they have but memes at this point?
Well,
but as we know, the left cannot meme.
She can't run on her record. That's what it comes down to.
It's horrible.
You have to try everything else.
Yeah, she can't run on the fact that she's incarcerated more black people than.
Speaking of criminal justice reform, Kamala makes the perfect case for such a thing, more than anybody in the actual law enforcement side of things ever could. As a prosecutor, she set back criminal justice reform about 150 years to the point of literal slavery.
And when I tried to bring that up to the Krasenstein brothers, I got kicked from their Twitter space for even bringing that up.
No, that person that really bothers me. I'm a big guy on second chances, redemption, right? And I think that's where my focus on criminal justice reform actually really is like. I think a lot of times, like if you're a felon, especially, but a convict of any kind, or even accused, society will pile on you forever in a way that's not healthy towards, fixing your. Now, granted, there's a lot of people there's no hope for, but as a Christian, I believe there's actually hope for everybody. It's just that a lot of people continue to choose the bad thing, and Like I don't think being a non-violent felon, let's say, a non-violent, non-sexual specifically, whatever kind of crime that might be, and then never be able to own a firearm again. I think that's actually kind of un-American.
I agree
things
with
like that. I think a lot. I think if convicts and felons felt they had a better chance on the outside, let alone let's not even talk about what happens in the prison. I got some thoughts about that. Sam's heard my bit about prison rape that we all joke about it, but I don't actually think it's very fucking funny. You know what I mean? I think that's actually a serious problem. And I always make the case that if you think it's fine and it's okay because some of those people you don't like what they did, then what you should do is you should make that the law. And then the prison can hire an actual rape master to distribute their punishment. And you could do it officially. If you wouldn't sign on to that and you wouldn't want to vote for that because that's against your beliefs, then maybe you should not think it so lightly when people are getting raped in prison, because that's what you're doing. You're saying it's okay. It's not okay.
I think one of the big problems in just about everything is this pendulum swing.
Right.
If you go back with prisons, where you had those chain gangs and the prisons became extremely overbearing in terms of, they were using them for, cheap labor, basically free. And the conditions were horrible. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then you get the pendulum that swings so far in the other direction where prison basically has become this country club. Mm-hmm. And so we constantly, in just about everything, we do these pendulum swings where we go from one extreme to the other. The problem with mental health in this country, where we're dealing with so many people, especially the police, are dealing with, and cops are not equipped. I mean,
There's not enough hours in the day for you to be a psychology expert.
Right. And so we got rid of the mental institutions because they were bad. And now we have no mental health care. And we're dealing with a whole new problem.
I've been saying this for the longest time, the asylums, as they're called, whatever. The problems that people will point out with them, one thing is, if you actually look into it, we're less common than people would like to believe.
Right.
And we're more at specific institutions. Some were horror shows, and there's no one denying that. But others were the asylum system as it's set up. A lot of people don't understand what it was supposed to be, because they had more freedoms than what you would call a psychiatric ward today, which is a locked ward.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They'd be able to go to and from town. They could even hold down jobs outside of it. And it was a safe place to live. Granted, they'd have to earn those privileges. It's not like, oh, we'll let every person out day one, right? But you could live there like it's just your place to live. And there was staff there to make sure you took your medication, right? And saw your doctor and things like that. And I used to do a show aside from this where I would make jokes about internet people who are exactly like that. That instead now this guy Dave is living on a check from the government in subsidized housing with nobody watching him, and he broadcasts it on the internet. And he's one of the harmless ones, I would say, because all he does is like yell racial slurs at his neighbors and, you know, be a real nuisance. He's a schizophrenic man, and the neighbors don't like him, and he does and he films himself being weird, right? And I use that as an example of, like, I think that there could be a better place for Dave where there's somebody, my God, just somebody to watch and make sure he takes his meds, because I, an observer on the internet who's actually kind of making fun of the guy, can tell you when he's off his meds. And so over the years, it's got to a point where I tell Dave to take his meds, but that's the worst thing. So I tell him don't. When I know he's not taking them, I'll like encourage him not to, and he'll do it he'll take his meds to defy me. It's a fun look, but and that's what I mean about you talking about the communication skills, right? Imagine communicating with the schizophrenic man, right? Well, imagine being a police officer, because you're going to do that.
Yeah, and that's the issue. I mean, there are some people that no matter what you do, they're never going to be better and able to take care of themselves outside of a hospitalized setting, because you put them, I mean, it's like arresting somebody, putting them in jail, and, you know, you get them off of drugs, and then you have some, you know, this court thing where they throw them back out on the street and they tell them, okay, well, you be good. And they give them no support at all. And the first time they hit a speed bump, they're back on drugs. Well, same thing with mental illness. You get them to the point where they're on medication and they're doing good. And then you go, okay, you're fine. You put them back out on the street. They stop taking their meds.
And we 100% know that they stop taking their meds.
Yep. And it's just a continuous vicious cycle.
Every single time. And it's not just like, some of them don't take their meds. Like, universally, at some point, these people stop taking their meds.
Yeah, because they're fine. And legitimately, at that point in their life, they are fine. When they come off the meds, then they're not.
And then all the family knows is from when they were fine, you know, or one day they just went crazy.
Most times the family will abandon them because they can no longer take care of them. They can no longer deal with them. And so rather than try to do anything, they'll pick up the phone, they'll call the cops. And if anything goes wrong, well, it's the cops' fault. And it's like, wait a second, you're his family. You know, what have you been doing?
They just call in a section, especially like when it's the most heated possible situation with that person too. It's like, and then they know it's coming, and they could call 2 days before when you could come calmly talk to the guy and maybe even just convince him to take his meds. But no. They wait until he's pulled a knife out or something, like really escalated the situation. And then anything the bad that happens from that is totally you guys' fault.
Yeah. And I think in a way they do that to make themselves feel better. Well, we called the cops. Yeah, but as much training as you get, again, there you can't. You're not
can't
getting
train for schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Even a psychiatrist will tell you, like, you can know what it is, you can recognize it, but then you're talking to that person, and it's a really wild experience sometimes talking to people who are really out there, and you got to be 100 times more understanding than normal.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult to deal with those kind of situations. So I don't know, just call a cop, let them do it.
Exactly.
Oh, and they don't know him at all, and they don't know the it'll be something silly like a picture on the back of the wall, the back of the front door that he really, really likes. And when you come in, the door's closed, and this man's like, you ruined my picture or something, right?
Yep.
And as silly as that situation sounds, it's not unrealistic at all.
No, it's not. It's not. I mean, there are triggers for them, and you just don't know going into that situation because it may be your first time there dealing with them, and you don't know what those triggers are.
Right.
And
Mom and Dad know damn well.
Yep.
Right. But you don't.
Yeah. And now you're fighting with him, and then they interject and they say, well, all you had to do, well, don't you think that was information you should have given to me when I got here?
Right. Yeah. Step one, do this, because otherwise they'll freak out. You see, and so my son, we've encountered the police a couple times. I talked on the show about this before. There was a shooting outside my house one night. And so my son wants to be a cop now because the cops were so good dealing with him. He witnessed it, by the way. Mm-hmm. He was outside with my wife and a guy across the street. Apparently it was a drug dealer or whatever, because this isn't that kind of neighborhood, but whatever. He was taking a shot at somebody for whatever reason. They ended up catching him. My son saw the whole thing. He even gave a statement to the cops what he saw, the bad guy, and calling him the bad guy, and the cops were very good with him. And we've been very conscious about, we don't want him to think they're the bad guys, because a lot of media tells you to think that nowadays, and so now, because of that night, ever since then, what do you want to be when you grow up? He's 8, by the way. He wants to be a police officer and save people. That's what he says.
Hopefully he'll grow out of it.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
Unless things change.
He does have, he's got a family full of firefighters and cops, so it's not unrealistic that he might want to go into that. I was encouraging him when we were camping. See, he found out something really cool. He met park rangers, and I told him,
there you go. Yeah.
These are the police of the woods. And he was like, ooh.
Yep, that's not a bad thing.
No, that's not bad at all.
Yeah. I would love. And then at that moment I realized I made the wrong choices in life. I should have been a park ranger.
Yeah, I'm hoping in the next few years. It always is a pendulum to a certain extent, but I'm hoping that police attitudes will improve over the next few years. I feel like the
left is going to lash out more at cops. I think sometimes the right gets too blinded by being opposed to that. Because, like I say, a lot of black people I know, a lot of what they say about Republicans in general is they feel like, oh, well, I was part of BLM and I still actually support the idea of BLM. And a lot of Republicans and Trump supporters will immediately recoil in horror. But it's this comes from a real place for them, guys. You got to understand, if you're from those poor areas and you've experienced the abuse of the police and see them as the enemy, right? They're not coming from a place of all cops are bastards either. Most of the ones, at least who I know, they understand individuals are individuals. Who would understand that better than gangbangers, right?
That's the other problem with the internet, though, is that you do get that you get that minority that is really
the
vocal
whole conversation, yeah.
And so, yeah, like there might be some legit, people who are like, I don't hate all cops. We do need reforms.
And perfect, but we can't get any reforms without reaching across the aisle to them. That's what I've been doing for before BLM existed. Right.
I think
my bad experience. I've always been open to talking with law enforcement. That's how we get anything done. And you know who I found is as open to reform as anybody is law enforcement officers.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that we're kind of like we put this water on the stove and the frog jumped in, and the frog doesn't realize it's cooking at this point. The water's just slowly getting hot. And that's the problem. Until we stop with all of the rhetoric, and it's specifically designed to inflame. Yeah. I mean, you're trying, and that's the whole thing. People need to wake up.
Inflaming is big business.
Yeah. I always go back to Al Sharpton. Okay. Al Sharpton is probably one of the biggest scam artists that has ever run around. And he basically made a career and a living off of other people's misery. People need to wake up.
Most of my brothers and sisters in the hood feel the same way about him, and they always have, because he doesn't help them for shit.
No, he never did.
He shows up when there's a bag to be taken and then leaves.
Yeah. And so people need to stop. They need to look at and they need to hold their public officials accountable. We don't need any more rhetoric. We need solutions. And, I'm hoping that we're heading in that direction as a country, because, this is not sustainable.
You mentioned the boiling frog, and I think that's a great analogy, and it might be real old and overplayed even, but it's so poignant that it's one that people will always come back to. And I think we have reached a point where the temperature is too much for what we call the normies.
Yeah.
Right. The people that aren't as plugged into all of this, the debate was part of that.
Mm-hmm.
They saw Joe Biden uncut for a time, and it raised a lot of red flags with them on both sides, right? That they didn't realize how bad it was, or whatever their takeaway was. They started being engaged. Obviously, an assassination attempt is going to get normal people engaged. But also minor things I've noticed. To people start talking about stuff to me. See, I talk about politics on the show and stuff, but in real life, I try and keep a lot of it to myself. And I'm a very friendly guy, But people know I have my politics, and they come to me and talk to me. And it's been interesting because I get all these different opinions from people. But lately it's all been, bro, I can't afford to eat. I had extra money in my pocket with the last president. He's running again. I don't care if he made a mean tweet.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And the kitchen table issue 1, and the war issue 2, and crime 3. In that order is just anecdotally. I'm not a pollster, just from the people I'm talking to, average everyday people, different races, ages. The people I come across that talk about this kind of stuff, they're worried about the economy, war, and crime.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, because I'm in a similar situation as Max. I keep kind of politics low key in my real life, but the two things I always hear about is the economy, and then, hey, I have nothing against gay people, but why are school teachers trying to transition my 8-year-olds and teach?
Here's the thing that I don't understand about this, and people probably, if you're able to talk to them individually, and I think they can comprehend it. Once you start talking to groups of people, it kind of like the message just completely deteriorates because the shouting and the accusations start.
Because they're able to back away into the crowd and blend back in rather than face things. Yeah.
You look at, I mean, they're losing their minds about this issue with education and what's being taught to kids. How about we get back to, I don't know, like reading, writing, math, history? Why are we teaching all of these other non-issues? We're dumbing down our kids, and I can't help but wonder if this is by design.
My son's school is cutting physical education and music programs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're not adding any of these weird subjects. Like, I'm very involved. The only way you can have your kid in school nowadays is to be super duper involved, by the way. If you're not, you're probably missing something. But they are in other parts of the state. And so that same budget cut that hit the school that my kid's going to, that's cutting arts, music, and music particularly upsets me because that's one of his passions, and physical education also upsets me because that's one of my passions. Those are getting cuts, right? And then they're teaching, transgender studies in middle school with that same money. Well, I would prefer all kids in this state, which, by the way, the First Amendment to the state constitution of Massachusetts is a right to an education. I don't know if anybody knew that. Our free speech is number 2 for Massachusetts, and they were both written long before the U.S. Constitution.
Yeah, I actually did know that.
Here's the thing. Look at all of the statistics that have come out and showing the decline in all of the scores for kids.
Across the board.
Across the board.
Literacy rates are deplorable. There are children graduating from some of the worst schools in the country, admittedly, but still this isn't acceptable. A percentage in the double digits, over 10%. It changes year to year, so I don't remember exactly what it was last year. Graduate as functionally illiterate.
Yeah.
Meaning they can only really read and write their own name.
Why do we have a Department of Education if this is the level of education that we find acceptable now? I mean, growing up, I went to Catholic elementary school, and then I went to public high school. You want to talk about a rude awakening? But it was like, and I went back when they still had nuns and habits and rulers. But the level of education, there was, I got away with so much in public high school that never would have stood. And we're going back a bit.
I did Catholic education outside of, I didn't go to a Catholic school, but I did what they call CCD. And it's very, very intensive, right?
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, I realize how much, I really retain and learn in my day. We were learning Latin, and that is something I still use to this day, although I'm a nerd. Not everybody would need it. But it's cool to be able to look at the classics and stuff, because it was more than just education about Catholicism. It was about history and culture and a lot of amazing things that I learned that might have seemed boring at the time, or it might have seemed like a waste of time, but I picked up a great education that way. In public school, I made such a nuisance of myself that there was no way I was getting into college. I got suspended 65 times in high school.
And as I've said before on the show, you're probably better for not going into college. And I say that as someone who actually, I'm wearing my USF polo today. So,
I never had any interest anyway, because I'm kind of I hate being taught, but I love to learn kind of guy.
Right.
I got through college because it was specifically a topic that I loved.
Same here. I actually went through a major that is actually helpful to me.
Yeah, the kind of diplomaocracy stuff where people like lord over their degrees is very much seems to be a leftist thing. Like I only get that from like weird cat ladies and stuff. There was one teacher that I had to have removed from my kid's class because I disagreed with her on something, and I was right, and that went up her ass sideways, and she just started screaming at me that she had a master's degree, and I was like, I don't care. You're not my kid's teacher anymore, and if you're going to scream at me, I'm a grown man, lady. But, you know, the thing about a lot of these teachers, the public school teachers, is they're like the queen of their little fiefdom, because most parents don't pay attention to their kids at home, much less at school.
Someone actually brought up the fact that they have a master's degree to try and hold over me, and both of you will love this. And I just said, "Oh yeah, well I'm a published author." So
there you go.
I can hold that over a lot of people.
Which literally in most people's minds holds the same weight. I know that the people with the master's degree would disagree because they went through a lot more to get it in a lot of cases.
Because they had to pay for it.
Anybody could just write a book. But to your average Joe Schmo on the street, if you say I have a master's degree and you say I'm a published author, they probably put you on equal footing.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I'm not a credentialist, mostly because I don't have any.
Well, the thing is, you can have a master's degree, and that's wonderful.
I respect you went to school.
Right. That's what you did. What's the practical application for it? Right. You know, when you come out with it, what was the master's degree in? Because, I mean, you basically, you know, you have all of these programs and degrees in studies that have no practical application, you know, other than maybe academia.
Well,
yeah.
If she was smart and like knew how to talk to human beings, she might have leaned into, instead of credentialism, meritocracy, which I'm a big fan of and might have had more an effect on me. And she could have said, I've been teaching for 35 years. And instead of saying I have a master's degree, pay attention to me, I've been teaching for 35 years. And I've been like, okay, that's certainly something.
It is, but then show me what your classes have accomplished. What is their grades?
But it doesn't prove to me that I'm wrong about the thing that she even admitted I was right about. It was a procedure. It was like a school procedure thing that I said was the way it worked in the state handbook or something, because I've looked into this stuff, and she told me it didn't, and I was right, and it just went up her ass because these cat ladies can be like that, right? Yeah. And they have to prove that, I'm smarter than you. And I was like, well, okay, well, the state says I'm right. You know what I mean? And your master's degree doesn't make you right. Your 35 years of teaching doesn't make you right either. You know, if you treat people on an equal playing field, you get a lot better results. I'm saying to a cop who probably has to do that more than anybody in his career.
But you know what? You can always escalate. That's the problem that I have with a lot of people.
True.
They go from 0 to 100 in a split second. You know what? If we want to get to 100, we can get there eventually. But there's no reason.
It'll be more satisfying if we do it the right way, actually.
Exactly. Let's
both be ready for it, you know?
Yeah, let's have a conversation, you know, and let's not just jump ugly right from the beginning, you know. But people seem to tend to do that more and more these days.
Well, it's easier to find a bubble of people that agree with exactly what you think than ever.
Sure.
And but this is the case I've made more than anything in a couple years. I did a video called "The Internet is Dead," explaining that it is of my belief, and the evidence seems to be on my side, that a large proponent of the people you interact with online are bots. Yes. People that you think personally might be real, might not be. You know what I mean? And we're all susceptible to it. And it's more common than people think.
Just for argument's sake, I'm just going to throw this in here because I know there's been a lot of talk lately on Twitter about getting rid of the bots and getting rid of the porn bots. Please don't do that because I got like a handful of them that actually like my stuff.
Yeah.
I'd lose my entire fan base.
I think the reason I push for the bot thing so hard is actually more about perspective. Because one of the things with the bot thing that people don't understand is the illusion of popularity, which is a trick a lot of Chinese sites, in particular TikTok, will employ, where they'll give you thousands and thousands of fake views.
Sure.
The site itself. Now, people understand the idea of buying bot or buying views, buying subscribers, and all that stuff, and people generally frown upon that. But one, how do you know YouTube doesn't do the same thing? This has been my thing: is who verifies YouTube or even Rumble or anybody's numbers? The answer is nobody. The answer is you're taking their word for it.
Because we have a Nielsen rating for internet.
And I've absolutely proven that video through a couple of experiments that you can manipulate that very easily, so that you could put up a video that's complete black screen with nothing, no text or anything, and make the title completely random letters and words, right? And you'll still get 100, 150 views.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
No matter what,
unsearchable and unwatchable, but the bots still find it.
Right. You will find somebody, you give them an algorithm, they'll find a way to exploit it. It's human nature. I mean, some people just take it as a challenge. The funny thing to me is when you see on Twitter, all of a sudden there'll be a hot button topic and you will see the same response from dozens and dozens and dozens of different accounts. And it's like, yeah, you guys didn't all come up with the same thought at the same exact time,
right?
You know.
Well, and other bots that are not even like that actually do engage in conversations that are seen, like you'll have these in your followers too. You know the porn bots; they spot them a mile away, and you know the yes man bots that all say the same thing. But what you might not spot is the flattery bots or the reply guy bots. These are bots that will always be in your replies, and they will say something relevant to what you said, but they are literally coming from chat bots.
Mm-hmm.
How do you spot these? Name bunch of numbers, account made within the last month.
Yeah.
No profile picture, obviously, or an anime profile picture, usually.
Yeah.
I think Mort gets a lot of those.
Absolutely, and I block every single one because it's literally a no-name number account with one or two followers, and I immediately fucking block them.
I don't block anybody, but that's just me. I don't think it's worth my time.
Yeah,
I use the mute button occasionally, because I feel like that's more to the point. Like
the mute.
I typically block exclusively bots at this point.
I don't care if even the bots see what I say. Why I use the mute is generally I just don't want to see what you say.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care if anybody sees what I say. That's why, because I understand the way a lot of people, especially young people, man, I understand that the internet is not a private place. Not at all. Your DMs are not private. I don't care if you got end-to-end encryption. If there's two people, one of them can tell a secret, dummy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? So you think the shit you post is private, but you better make sure the person you're posting it to is your bestest buddy of all time and loyal then. Otherwise, if you think that something can come out public that would be really embarrassing, probably don't post it online at all, dog.
That's like that's like the old Hell's Angels motto. 3 can keep a secret if 2 are dead.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, gentlemen, we're coming up on 3 hours here, and it's been a blast.
I had a great time. Thank you.
I didn't think it would go for so long, but Andrew, I really appreciate you sticking with us for all 3 hours. So
I'm from New York. I can talk.
Well, likewise, and
that's why the whole New York, Boston thing is all phony. Is because we're all just a bunch of bullshitters and like to yell at each other.
Basically, yeah.
And we actually kind of love each other, really.
We do, but we don't talk about it.
What would we do? Plus, he's not a Yankees guy, so I can't ever hate him.
And
he had me at Shea Stadium, Sam.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, who doesn't love Shea Stadium?
When I watch sports, I was a Yankees guy.
But
why would you say that?
Yeah,
because it was fun.
That's embarrassing, actually.
It happens. But I say it in the past tense because I'm not a sports fan now.
Well, yeah, that's a whole nother topic. But my Dogs of War is out now in paperback and ebook format. Morthis and I both got our copies like the day after.
Yeah, it feels great in the hands, Sam.
But if you're behind the curve like me, you can still pick up the Fourth Estate since I don't have the new one to hold up. I'll get mine too.
Yeah.
I now that I've gotten the Dogs of War, I plan on reading them back to back now to make sure I'm not missing anything.
Nice.
And you can buy Mr. Nelson's series. You just name your series by the protagonist, right?
Yeah, it's actually two series. One's James McGuire, the other one's Alex Taylor. The characters commingle in their books together. So
nice.
There's a chronological order, even though the books have their own issues. And they're available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Awesome. So,
and worth a read. I really stressed that. Like I was
literally put them on my list.
I got the message today, and Sam was like, "Oh, we're having Andrew on." I'm like, "Oh yeah, the one that I've been having a rough week. Sorry." I was like, "Oh, I better get a shirt on. I forgot I didn't have one of those."
So
one of them nights. But we had fun. I appreciate your time, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
And folks, we appreciate you for listening. Those who have stuck around, thanks for all the super chats from MAGA News Network, and thanks to Shmuley for popping in as well. So
just a reminder, no bits and bones this week.
I have the pleasure of saying there may be a Sandwich Makers broadcast this week. I'm pretty sure there will.
Oh, that would be great then. So, well, and I'll be back next week. So until then, good night. God bless. God save the sweet nation. God, freedom, democracy in that order, and we'll see you on the next show.
Amen.
Thanks for listening to The Whitfield Report on the NGC Network. Please visit Sam's website at www.thesamwhitfield.com and support Sam on Patreon at patreon.com/Whitfield Report. Until next time, God bless, God save this great nation, and God, freedom, legacy, in that order.